Thank you, everybody, and Happy New Year. I think I believe it's our first episode shoot for 2026. Great to be back here, and I guess we are on our 14th episode, and it's really been inspiring to listen to all of you. We've taken a break, and we're back here with amazing guests. We've received significant feedback from the whole community. We appreciate, and we love your feedback. We've also gone mainstream on TV with TV47, Radio 47, which has also amplified our view at a country level. We're definitely going to be doing more exciting stuff, allowing audiences to curate and have a conversation with us on a real-time basis, where you can ask the founders and entrepreneurs questions on real-time as we move into mainstream events and TV. So it's great to be back here, and I'm Mike Masharia. I'm the host and founder at FoundersBattlefield. It's been inspiring to be here, and it's been maybe 10 months in this journey. And we're looking forward. Today we've got amazing guests with me in multiple dimensions, whether it is serial entrepreneurs, career-based entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs who start in corporate careers and eventually into entrepreneurship, large-scale entrepreneurs who have taken on micro transactions, but then at a large scale. So I'll sort of start with clockwise, okay? Or can I start with ladies first? But ladies first, let's give Wawira some breathing room to see what Ali can help us do. So with me on the set today is Ali Mohamed. Ali Mohamed is somebody I know for the last few years. Interesting dichotomy of how we met, where we are. He reached out to me and said, Mike, I love what you're doing. It's amazing. I'd like to see if I can have the next generation of entrepreneurs and also have a conversations around multiple aspects of being a founder. So Ali is going to introduce himself, Ali Mohamed, and he's going to quickly tell us about himself, or just quickly introduce himself. Then we'll then go into a bit of depth, maybe take 3-4 minutes to just do what we call a quick speed dating kind of conversation about yourself. Then we'll deep dive down. Today's topic of the day is book smart, broke, the education paradox. I'm not saying anything is wrong with education. We're trying to understand where education fits in the founder journey. So this conversation today is not about don't go to school, be the Bill Gates, and start a business from the garage. It's not. It's really trying to ascertain in the world today as an entrepreneur, what kind of knowledge do you need? When AI is available, what kind of knowledge do you need to have? And how do you sharpen your skills as an entrepreneur to be able to be successful in this ecosystem? And also at the same time, how do you learn from failures? Is failure a lesson that you need to go with? So Ali, over to you.
Thank you, Mike, and really appreciate the invitation. I think there's a lot of things we can learn as founders, and we're still learning. The education process is ongoing. Like Mike said, my name is Ali Mohamed. Grew up in Europe, worked in Europe, was the youngest head of debt capital markets at BNP Paribas in London. I worked for a Dutch bank called ING, then moved to London with BNP, went to Citigroup, and then I was poached by members of the royal family of Qatar, whereby they invited me to Qatar to set up a bank, whereby I became also the first African to be a CEO of a bank in Qatar. I was given billions of dollars to set up a bank. So yeah, that's also something interesting. Startup is something that I've never done, but it was quite interesting and challenging. And then I went to work with the Sovereign Fund, set up a strategy department for them that looked at Africa in a different way. Yeah, because Qatar did not understand Africa, so we tried to make them understand that Africa is not what they normally see on TV. So Qatar Airways has flies to 53 cities in Africa. Qatar National Bank owns EcoBank 25%. So Qatar Sovereign Fund owns the largest airport in, probably is going to be the largest airport in Africa, Bugesera Airport in Rwanda. Again, Qatar Airways has acquired Rwanda Air. So all that is because of the work that we did in Qatar. And then I ended up being a CEO of an energy bank. I was given $10 billion. And I decided, while doing that, I was also a founder. I'd never lost touch with home. So I used to invest all the bonus that I used to get in Qatar, in the UK, I used to put back in Kenya. So yeah, my sectors in Kenya are car wash, petrol stations, restaurants, coffee shops, yeah, and properties. Thank you, Mike.
Wow, interesting. We'll come back. Quite an interesting story.
Yeah.
So I'll also touch on to you, and I want to leave this question with you as you think about it, as you ponder. So started in Europe, stayed in Europe, ended up in Middle East, lots of capital. Coming back to Kenya, it's a lot happening, right? I want to ask how those experiences have shaped your view on how you run a business, right? Most of your business look like transactional, but at a distribution level business. Coming from hedge fund or a PE fund, I just want to understand your mindset as you go along, right?
Correct.
So we'll come back to that. Now, next on the set with us is James Wambugu. James is somebody I know for maybe 15 years, I guess. James wears multiple hats. He also, I believe, he's going to explain himself, also lectures at the university, at the business school, Stratford Business School. He, I would say, as he introduced himself, we've been having this conversation about him coming to set. He's been asking me, Mike, what do you want me to come in? So I told him, just do you. Come to set and do you. So I'm really keen to see how he does him, okay, in terms of this conversation. Again, James, welcome. And we will be here for the next maybe 80 minutes. So welcome to the set. And maybe you can do an introduction about yourself and connecting the dots back to what we're talking about.
Oh, thank you very much, Mike. My name is James Wambugu, as Mike says. I think my biggest claim to fame is having run UAP. And so it basically grew from a very small organization to one of the big 4 insurance groups in East Africa. My life starts in earlier on, where I grew up in Njiru, went to primary school in Njiru, then went over to outside Njiru to high school, and then University of Nairobi. And my first serious job, I did a lot of gigs when I was at university, but while I was at university, I was recruited by Pricewaterhouse, which later on became PricewaterhouseCoopers. I did BCom, studied accounting, finance, did MBA at the University of Nairobi. And then with PwC, I worked in Kenya, I worked in the UK. But at some point, I asked myself whether I really wanted to do the same thing for 30 years, as a partner, for example. And the day I decided I didn't think that was very good for me. A job was advertised by Lono Africa, which I ended up taking. But Lono Africa was an organization that was a conglomerate that was on its final years. And I must say, joining that group, I contributed to the final cutting up of Lono Africa into the specific businesses and setting them off. And I then joined African Lakes, which used to own Africa Online, because I was really excited about the .com age, and I was advising Africa Online while I was at PricewaterhouseCoopers. But again, when I went there, I just felt like the strategy they were pursuing really didn't. I couldn't agree with it, and I felt this business wouldn't make it. And we had those conversations in the organization. And I had written a paper where I thought this is what we should do, and that took me to UAP, because where I basically actually took a pay cut to join UAP because it was a smaller organization. And when I went there to have a conversation about taking this job, I gave the MD then this paper I had written, and he read and he said, this is exactly what we want to do at UAP. The rest of it is I got involved in quite a lot of things. I think from the very early on, I joined UAP in 2003, and I left in 2018. And during that time, really, this organization grew. I think we were doing less than $1 billion. Billion shillings in premiums in 2003. By 2014, when Old Mutual invested in UAP, we were doing 19 billion and we were in a number of countries. And I've seen it all, and it was the most exciting part of my career. I feel I've been one person who's been really blessed in terms of career experience. And my main life in UAP, as much as I was leading the organization, I felt that what we needed to do is to change how insurance reaches people, how insurance impacts people, because there is so much insurance can do for people. And that was my theme the entire period, which meant that we were always doing new things, learning new things and trying to do them. And then out of that, I actually decided to carry on with one of them by retiring early. And I looked for a friend of mine because we needed to do, the idea I had required quite a bit of IT and digital marketing. So I linked up with someone we were using at UAP at that time for those services. And we started SolveIt. SolveIt is a digital-enabled motor vehicle valuation company that for purposes of insurance, assessment of accidents. And the overall vision is actually we just want to be on-demand asset inspection and platform that will enable you, whether, for example, you want to buy some land, you should be able to have someone who can go and inspect that land for you and tell you what's happening. If you run a restaurant, you can be able to go, to put someone who can tell you whether there are enough people coming to your restaurant on a particular day, which then you can connect to the revenue that you collected on that day. So SolveIt is in the early years, it's gone very well. And then post-retirement as well, because my co-founder now runs SolveIt. He was running his business, so I was helping with running the company initially. But now I do less of SolveIt. I'm also involved in education of business leaders at the Strathmore Business School. And I also now consider myself actually my main profession, or should I say, my main occupation now is a professional director. I sit in a couple of prominent boards in insurance, in telcos, and in reinsurance. The insurance company I sit in is actually Africa-based. So that's my life in short. I don't know if you want me to talk a little bit about this story about education.
We'll come to
it.
We'll come back. But
so really, thank you for bringing me to this set. As I was telling you, I'm not sure there is much I'm going to share, but hopefully by the time we are done, something will have come out.
James, don't worry, we will see.
Thank you.
But thanks, James, for introduction. But I think as you've spoken, something has come to mind. Generally we have scripts, we think about it, but over time you learn how to have the conversation. And as we go to Wawira, something is occurring in my mind. There's skill-based innovation, where you have a skill, and then you figure out how to build a business around the skill. You've got what we call gap-based innovation, where you're in an industry like you're in insurance, or you saw a gap and now you've done SolveIt, where you're doing insurance. So you've really pivoted narrowly into insurance. So your whole experience over years has come into SolveIt, and then of a full SolveIt, you're saying you've got execution capability. You know how to do execution based on managerial capability to build teams and everything else. So that's where you ended up. If I look at Ali, and I'm going to ask the question because I'm trying to figure how you guys ended up in as entrepreneurs. Look at Ali, it's about deployment of capital. So the skill you have is deploying capital.
Correct.
Whether you're away, you can still deploy capital and trust people to run capital effectively. So if I think about your businesses, you're taking a lot of money, your pension, not your pension, your bonuses, and sending to Kenya, and it's really a conversation around how do diaspora people even trust investing back, because a lot of people have been burnt through those kind of investments. So it's interesting, you've taken that and run with it, and that has become now your your new business where you share both. So we'll come to multiple ways in how you pivot into that, because all that is education. For James, it was education he learned from his employers. He talked about African Lakes. I've bumped into African Lakes also in my life. Londro, you, Qatar, and into that. But now we are back to Wawira, finally, and not last. Wawira, you can see how that conversation has gone, right? I was looking at your LinkedIn, and I saw, okay, Wawira has done this, Australia, she did this, she ended up doing what she's doing. So your business is very fascinating. Also, apart from fascinating, also very significant public good, and there's a lot of courage to do what you're doing. So for me, I'm quite fast. I like to understand how you got where you are, context of who you are from this point of view, and how you ended up what you're doing. Because I don't think you're a chef, and you're in the business. So I just am curious, how did you pivot into that? Is it passion? Is it something that happened in your life that got you there? So over to you, Wawira, as you introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me, and I'm very honored to follow such incredible careers and gentlemen. So my journey, started when I was listening to the number of careers that you've all had. I was like, oh my God, I need to innovate and have something else. But my journey started, I grew up in Kenya, went to school here. I know we're talking about education today, and education was something that was very instilled in me by my parents, because they'd grown up in significant poverty and had educational opportunities through strangers, through people who benefited, who invested in them. And so I grew up with a big framing of education being so powerful, in fact, the most powerful thing. So I remember when I was in school, my dad took us to a low-cost primary school, I'd say, not super low cost, but more middle, And I used to wonder, why are you taking us to schools you can't afford? Because sometimes it was so tough for them to pay school fees, and things like that. But later on in my life, I understood that investment that they were making in my education. So went to these primary schools, went to high school here, which I can talk more about in terms of education and what that taught me, especially the high school piece. And then went to university in Australia to do my undergrad. And how I ended up in Australia, a lot of people ask me, Kenya is so far from Australia, why go all the way? It was because the only country I could actually work to pay my school fees legally was Australia. Wow. So I went there, you get a work permit with your student visa, and my parents were like, we can pay one semester and then the rest of it, you kind of take care of yourself. So they paid the one semester and then the rest of it I was on my own. So I literally did my 4-year degree working 3 to 4 jobs, and I was studying nutrition and food sciences. Okay. And the reason I studied nutrition is I wanted a skill that's transferable, because I knew I wanted to come back home and I wanted to do something in the health sector. But when I was doing that, I was still thinking, what can I do back home? Because I'd grown up, my parents are pastors and they're healthcare workers. So a lot of investment in how they build the community, how they think about investing in the community. And so I'd grown up knowing that, you can help people around you. So I asked them to go to the public schools, and I asked them what's the biggest challenge that kids have in learning. And they came back to me and they said it's actually lack of food. That they're hungry, they were fainting, they were running away from school. And that's how a school feeding program came up. So I raised a bit of money through friends and started feeding 25 kids. So you asked how I started. It started really as responding to a problem that I'd been told, this is a problem, solve it. And then I got really interested in how do you solve it for more and more people? How do you start with the 25, but how do you just scale that? Yeah. And so today we feed about 600,000 children every single day across Kenya. I employ about 5,000 people. Over 5,000 people across the country, and work to distribute about 120 tons of ingredients every single day that come from majority of smallholder farmers here in Kenya. Yeah. So it's gone from this small passion project just feeding 25 kids, and now is a backbone for how 600,000 kids are fed every single day.
Fantastic.
Wow. So, so you see the 600,000 meals a day.
Yes.
Wow. And then 5,000 people, and then 120 tons. So supply chain, managing people, consistency, execution capability I'm not sure what school will teach you to do all those things. So we'll come and figure out how you've continuously started and scaled, okay? And how do you continue to empower others? That's going to be an interesting conversation. But, I was talking to, we're having lunch and we're having a conversation and we talked about two different scenarios. We could be on a table. I'm drinking changa, okay? Another person is drinking cognac. Well, 3,000 bob, 4,000 bob, I don't know if it is 20,000, I don't know how much it is. Okay, I guess it's a lot. And we say, if we engage this conversation on a changa and cognac basis, okay, we may end up not finding the underlying reason or current why we are having that conversation. Correct? Mm-hmm. So we also have to accept that they know when there is darkness and there is light. That's because the earth circulates around. So over 24 hours, there's a rotation of the earth. So conceptually, we've come to accept that that's how there's day and night. So conceptual models.
True.
So I want to sort of bring a conceptual model to allow us to have this conversation because we can pivot it anyway. Ali has got a lot of conversation. I can imagine his journey. I look at James, the learnings you've had can also go into a whole vertical conversation, including your career right now, as you said, you're enabling business leaders. Then we look at Wawira, her conversation, she can talk about people-led learning. Because as you employ people, there's almost an inherent way of learning from them. Is that correct?
Yes.
So some decisions that you think are technical, you start realizing, really, they're technical. I have to learn from a guy who has never gone to school to tell me supply chain, the way you think may not really work the way your Harvard style or your MBA style. Is that correct?
Correct.
So let me try and put context to what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is let's create a conceptual model. In Founders, over time, I've realized there's a conceptual model that seems to work in any vague conversation. It's something we call the African Founders Operating System. You're doing your business. James is doing his business. Wawira is doing his business. I'm doing my business. But if you cut here our DNA strand or our bloodline, there's a constant thread. Now we need to identify what that constant thread is in our conversation in terms of education paradox. Is that correct? We all went very different education structures. Think about it. But we're all in nation building or country building or continent building. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the way I look at African Founder Operation, I look at it from 5 lenses. Let's try and have a question around those 5 lenses. The first lens is mindset. It's a mindset lens. And when I say mindset is you need, as a founder, to unlearn to learn. And look at Wawira's business. There's a lot of learning from Australia. She needs to learn and learn to learn. Correct?
Correct.
If I look at Ali, you also need to unlearn to learn because a car wash or a whatever business in this part of the world in Dubai or Middle East are 2 different things. Mm-hmm. Correct?
True.
So it's a mindset. It's a mindset conversation. So you learn through a mindset change. Mm-hmm. That's why we read books. That's why you decide. That's why we move from the village, or you say, no, okay, finally I can see why we're going to the moon with Elon Musk. Is that correct? Our mindset. Correct? Mm-hmm. Number 2, the next lens we need to look at is emotional. Okay? You can go and meet somebody who says, I learned, I don't want to learn. So emotional is about failure in school. You say, if I'm a C student or a D student, doesn't mean I cannot manage anything. But what's funny is the C students and B students that are running a lot of large infrastructure or whatever you want to call it. Do you call it or must you call it?
Equally.
Sure.
The A students work for the B and C students. It's a
yeah.
funny part of life.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to ask why. How is that happening? That's an emotional conversation that you need to accept. That you're going to work as an A student, most likely you work for a C student. What is it the C student has that you are working for them? Okay? I'm not saying that people with leadership are C. Please also don't take it just then strategic. So we are in the second pillar, right? So we said mindset, we said emotional. Then we're going to say what we call strategic lever. Your strategic is what you're taught in school. 1 + 1 is 2. 2 to the power of 2 is 4. Demand equals supply. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you have to define economics. debit, credit, supply, demand. Hiyo maneno umeonyesha of a school. What school has done is regimented your way of thinking. So we're okay, right? So even in all our businesses, demand and supply curves operate. Is that correct? So we are number 4 is social. How do you learn from social? James was talking to me, and I called James yesterday. We had a conversation, and he said, this yesterday, he told me, you know, my in-laws or my wife or my mom-in-law says, in Kikuyu, they call it wisdom of birth. You know, Kikuyu, they say it, Ogewa Musharire. Yeah? It's wisdom of birth. There are people who are naturally born with a knowledge. For whatever reason, they are not born with knowledge. And they might navigate life better than the people who have very structured knowledge. So it's your social way of how you acquire knowledge. Then lastly is spiritual. Spiritual is kuomba kwa Mungu kila siku. And I say there's nothing wrong with that. It is when the landscape is not clear how you use your third eye to make a decision. And you train your subconscious to start making decisions for you. Because over time, you train it, it becomes almost like your own AI engine that helps you make very strategic decisions. Then you ask, strategically, you think about it, emotionally that decision is aligned, but spiritually I feel, strategically it makes sense, balance sheet. Mindset makes sense, but spiritual, somebody tells you, hii kitu I feel, it's not aligned. Is that correct?
Correct.
So it's your AI in your back of your subconscious that is telling you over time, everything looks perfect, but there around the corner, I'm going to get crushed. Is that correct?
Correct.
So those are 5 pillars. So let us try and have a conversation around those 5 pillars. So what does that mean? It means that now let's take our personal lives and our journeys to where we are today. Whatever struck you in whatever I said, we can go ahead and have a conversation. I will start with me from a personal experience. When I look at spiritual or mindset, I'm going to use spiritual and mindset and emotional and social in a very interesting way. You know, when I'm implementing something, I assimilate a significant amount of knowledge from other people. So I listen. Then I look at patterns that form. Okay, so I could be in 10 conversations, but I'm going to pick significant items. So I create structure in what is in chaos. So I've found myself to be very good in executing projects where it's at a significant level of chaos, where many people cannot operate in a chaotic environment. So where there is chaos, you put me in the middle of chaos. I can go through the noise because I'm able to take my mindset, my spiritual side of things, and I have figured out why. It's because I started as an entrepreneur pretty early at 25. So regimentally, nobody has put structures in my mind to force me to think in a certain way. Does that make sense? Okay, now let's go to you guys. Now let's talk about, because there's somebody somewhere, think about it, how life has changed. There's too much noise. There's AI. There's TikTok, social media and everything. So people think because they've seen a 3-minute clip, it's learning. Correct? People are summarizing content. You put a book into ChatGPT, it gives you a 10-minute position. Correct? So let's talk about you guys and the future and where we are today and the businesses you run. From a social, emotional, mindset, and strategic point of view. I hope it's not too complex. So to end it.
So,
anything that came to mind as I drew that conceptual conversation?
I think those pillars are similar to the pillars that when I was young. So my foundation, holistically, spiritually, is Islam. And if you look at Islam, Mike, it promotes you to be an entrepreneur rather than being employed. Even in the prophetic teachings, it says, if you seek entrepreneurship, you'll get actually 90% blessed. So that's why you find a lot of Islamic communities, they do actually business. So 10% employment, they're not saying employment is bad, but employment is good. But what is better is, in Arabic word, it's called tijara, trade. Go into trade, go to the market, find out what's needed, supply, God will bless you. Growing up, I was raised by, my mom and dad passed away at a very early age, so I was raised up by my uncle who believed in probably instilling he used to call it 5H, is be happy in what you do. Happiness. You have to find joy. Whether you're inventing something, whether you're going to school, whether you're going to work, you have to be happy doing that. Second is you have to be hardworking. You have to give it all. Once you find something that you really like, you have to give it all, hard work. The other one is to be humble. And there's a thin line there between being humble. And humble, of course, spiritually, we are always taught not to be extravagant, to stay humble, help the needy, do what good is. The other one is holistic growth. Whether you meditate, whether you pray to Jesus, whether you pray to God, to Allah, you have to find something which is actually that motivates you spiritually. And the other last H, actually, it's hunger. You have to have the hunger to do what makes you happy, you know? So if you zoom out, what became Ali Mohamed is actually, I was guided by those. So at a young age, I sat on it was Eid holidays. After Ramadan comes Eid, so family gather. So they ask every child, hey, what do you want to become? And I used to be the one who used to be made fun of because a lot of them wanted to be lawyers, my cousins. Yeah, at the age of 11, 12, 13, they wanted to be lawyers, engineer, pilot. Yeah. So me, I used to say, I want to be a CEO of a bank. And they used to laugh at me. Next Eid holidays, we gather again. They asked the same thing. I said, look, I found actually a very nice university. I want to go to Harvard. They laugh at me. I said, you need to go to some other universities. Your jokes. So one of the last Eid holidays before my uncle passed, actually asked, what do you guys want to do? I said, look, I think we're a big gathering here. I'd like to employ probably 40, 50% of you guys. They laughed at me. The power of manifestation, positive. If you start at an early age, it works. I went to Harvard, became a CEO, employed 30% of my relatives. So if you believe in yourself, the 5H, you're hungry, passionate about everything. And guess what? We believe in actually sorting your own house before you sort somebody else's house. Help your own before you help others. So when I became a CEO of a bank, a lot of people actually, my family actually, they said, wow, you're our case study for, so I gave a lot of my family's friends intern. Yeah, so, but also deep down there, if you remember what I said, remembering that I'm a Muslim and trade is actually ultimately where I want to. So I started investing, deploying capital in Kenya. And actually, like Mike, you are somebody who actually looks at a problem and wants to solve that problem. So I had many problems. So one of the early products that I created with a few of my friends was the trust. How do you deploy your capital back to Kenya? You find that your cousin was supposed to build a house for you, but he went and bought a V8, got married in Mombasa, part of life. So I decided to create an app whereby if anyone wants to, for example, Mike, you're called by your cousin and said, I'm sick, I'm going to a hospital, and I need, let's say, like $200 for medical. No, you'll tell them no. Just log on onto bridgepaybills.Africa, whereby I aggregated all the hospitals, all the schools, all the merchants. So that cousin of yours goes to the hospital, you pay the hospital. He just provides you his patient number or whatever. So you paid the hospital. If it was truly that he was sick, Fine. Or another cousin of yours, nephew of mine will call me and say, Ali, can you pay school fees for me? I'll say, no. Go to the school, give me the pay bill number, your student number, I'm paying the school, where that goes. So that moral hazard of kurushwa, somebody taking for a ride is no longer there. So you create products out of necessity.
Oh.
Yeah, and also, this is something that, you actually, it's a problem that so you try and solve real-time problems using modern technologies that it is actually available here for us. And I find the joy, Mike, now that I left the corporate world, and because, like you said, corporate world can be very regimental. Oh. You are indoctrinated to think this way. Yeah, you put numbers in an Excel sheet. Probably this is the outcome. So this outcome you have to show. Oh. In corporate world, you're actually judged on how well you present something. But do you really actually believe in what you're presenting? As a founder there, I find joy in actually selling my product because I know I'm solving a problem. It doesn't matter how I'm packaging, So there's one of the mentors who actually came to our office and said, are you guys building a cathedral? No? Why are you not pitching ice to the Eskimos? Go out there and pitch, even if it's not perfect. You'll find somebody who will appreciate where you guys are coming from and you'll fund it. And that's where a lot of people get it missed.
So interesting, but I think what struck me the 5 H's,
yeah,
and how you connected religion is amazing to a fundamental pipeline to what has shaped you. I'm sure my colleagues must be wondering, yeah, that's interesting. I'd never really, and how you said about in religion, in Islam, they say, go out there, go trade. Then how eventually you find 20% years of significant level of our movement of trade in a country like this, a lot of it are people who, even some of the Islamic banks, some of the ecosystem movement, there's a lot of trust within that ecosystem. One of the topics we had in episode 1 was low trust and questionable ethics. The speed of capital and the speed of execution is also determined by low level of trust, right? But that's a different topic. So it's excellent. For me, it's my take, and I go over to either Wawira or James and sort of let's deep dive from a personal point of view. It's a personal story, really. Now let's dive into a little bit more, as we say, strategic thinking, or what we call conceptual model, connecting your personal life to what you're doing today.
Can start with Wawira.
Okay. I really relate with what Ali has said around sort of like having a grounding and sort of like a reason for why you do what you do. My reason, I mentioned a little bit about my parents. They were a very grounding force in my life. And as most parents are for most kids, you look at them and you're like, you learn from them, whether they say it or they don't say it. You're learning from what they're doing. And my parents were really big on community service. I mentioned that they were healthcare workers, they were pastors. Although they'd studied, professionally, they were healthcare workers. They later entered into business. That sort of our home being the center of if someone had a problem, if someone needed something, that was where they would come. I grew up with a very strong sense of that's how life is led, right? You have skills as they'd gotten skills. Like my mom was a clinical officer, my dad was an orthopedic. And so if you're a clinical officer, if a teenage girl is giving birth in the neighborhood, obviously you're the one to go and help, right? You're the one to go and take care of that. So I grew up with a sense of if you get education, if you get an opportunity, you use that to help other people. And so that was a framing of how I became and how I got into what I do right now. And when I think strategically in terms of what leads me and what guides me, I really liked what you said about the spiritual sort of inherent knowledge that you have, the subconscious knowledge. I don't know if I'd call it AI, intuition or
third eye.
Something, the third eye is essentially. that kind of like tells you like, this is where we're going, right? And you don't know why you're going that way. You're just like, that's where I'm going. And I'd say something, about Food for Education, for example, when I started, I made the decision to move back home from Australia. My parents were very against it. So I started Food for Education when I was 21. I finished university when I was about 22, 23. So by the time I'm finishing, I'm in Australia. There's a path to like permanent residence, to citizenship, to getting a nice job. All the classmates that I'd had were getting jobs in Australia, but I'm like packing, I'm like, I'm going home, I'm selling off my things. And my parents came from my graduation and they thought like I wasn't serious until they saw things in the house. Like, I've sold the fridge, I've sold the little things that I had in the house and my small car. And when I moved back, they were very much like, always supportive, but also questioning, like, why are you moving back? There are no opportunities here. What are you going to do? And I'm like, I've started this school feeding program. Maybe I could grow it. And at the same time, maybe I could get other jobs. But the decision also, I tried to get other jobs, for example, like I did, because I had a food science degree, did some work with Unilever. But at the bottom of my heart, I was just like, I don't want to do this. This is not what I want to do. I don't want to sell, no shade to anyone, but I don't want to sell products. I don't want to sell margarine. I don't want to sell detergents. That's not why I feel compelled to be alive, right? And I'm not fulfilled by that. So let me focus on what I feel is really giving me a lot of impact personally. But choosing a path to take a school feeding program, at that time maybe we were feeding about 40 children to 600,000 children as we are right now, and next year we'll be at 1 million. It's been something that I had to choose. I had to say, like, this is the thing I'm going to do. And against everyone's, my parents saying, no, actually, we didn't take you to university so that you can start something. You can start a passion project. That's not a real job. That's a hobby. And then deciding that I'm really curious about how to solve this problem. And then figuring out now how, when you say you want to solve a problem, who do you bring around you to help you do that? Because you don't have, we've spoken about balance sheets and P&Ls. I never had that experience. I did nutrition and food science. So I need to start thinking about unit economics. I need to start thinking about finances. I need to start thinking about how do you maintain books? How do you go through an audit and things like that? And then I had to create a team that helped me learn how to implement that.
Wow. You say you talked about unit economics. You talked about balance sheet. Those are all, as we said, strategic. That's what school teaches you, right? And I think it's going to be interesting. We're going to come back to you later and just go a little bit deeper in how you manage a 5,000 workforce, because it takes a lot of ingenuity to manage. And I would almost assume a lot of your workforce is what we call feet on the ground. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that today? As a founder, what education, apart from your parents helping you form your vision, there must be now other steps that have allowed you to be able to go through that framework, right? This in itself, meaning this show for itself, is also a learning journey. If you realize, you're sort of thinking, this Mike is asking me very interesting questions, but maybe retrospectively, you've never had that moment to be quiet on a Friday, Saturday afternoon, and somebody asks you some of these questions. So part of this is also learning. And there's an audience out there who are thinking, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting about religion. I've never seen it from that point of view. And we'll come back to that. And we go to James. James, you've said, almost call yourself a board, what do you say?
Professional board member.
Professional board member. Now in Kenya, there are people like those who are called professional board members. They're in all
a serious one. This one is a serious one.
Serious, because you're in public companies. Not serious joke. So, but also I feel there's a significant level of cycling the same corporate executives in boards in Kenya. It's rather, I'm not sure, I don't get it. Okay, but I'm not saying that's your position. But I think Wawira, for instance, can be a great board member in a telco. So they need to see what skill does she bring to a board in a telco. 5,000 people. She maybe has more employees than the telco itself. No, is that correct? If you think about it, right?
True.
So when you think about it, is she could bring a way of changing the way a company operates. Is that correct? So there's also a diffusion of knowledge that we share amongst ourselves as founders that we need to start. Corporate companies have learned to look for James, kuja hapa, keti hapa, shika hii board fees. Is that correct? Empty your debe of knowledge here. Is that correct? So coming back to you, now you've come back on this side of our equation. The watch a board on one side, okay? Let's come now to that line that brings to your current business, okay? Now let's now talk about the corporate experiences based on what you're talking about. Remember the 5 pillars of conceptual model we talked about. Now let's say how that immense 20-something years of experience has helped you get your business to where it is today. Because I would like to say that you've worked for companies that have moved billions from this to billions or this to billions. So it means you have to be the number one. I'm challenging you. Valuation company in Kenya, is that correct?
Correct.
Number one.
No doubt about it.
So you tell us how you've been working for billion-dollar companies. You're going to build your business to $1 billion. So you're going to be number one in that space. Over to you, James. Don't sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I want to actually also start a bit early, because where we find ourselves eventually is a product of quite a number of many factors. But underlying all of it, I think there is something I would call, I think Charles Handy, the British management experts, called it serendipity. You can do everything right, you can do, and then it just doesn't work. And someone else, it just seems everything comes together.
Interesting.
But regardless of that, there are certain things you must have before these things can come together. You can't just find yourself suddenly, okay, you're running this big company, or you started this business and it's working. There has to be an underlying thing. And for me, let me just start with overall the learnings and where it comes from. And I think it's for everyone. First of all, who we are and what we learn, the knowledge we gain, is both a question of nature and nurture. Nature in the sense that different people have different abilities they are given. Even in the Bible, I think Paul talks about this one can speak in tongues, this one can do. I mean, I can't speak in tongues, for example. Even if my life depended on it, I can, unless I pretend. Yet there is someone else who naturally would be able to do that. There's people who are very good in school with physics, and another person really struggles, wouldn't understand a thing. That is who we are, and we do this personality profiling even in companies to know where do you fit people. But there's also the nurturing part, and the nurturing part is where a lot of the education we get comes in. There is the formal education, and there's another underlying informal education. And I think the reason why, for example, African societies were able to retain a lot of their knowledge about everything was because of this element of experiencing it. So when you combine your nature and what you're learning. So take, for example, the family, and I think Wawira has talked about it. Even Ali has talked about his uncle. There are people who impact you in ways. A few years ago, I was asked, who's the person who's had the biggest impact in your life? And I said, it's my grandmother. Because, I mean, largely who I am, and not just me, but I have two brothers who grew up very close together. We almost have similar thinking. It's because of what inculcated in us, our parents as well, because my dad was a headmaster, and as you'd expect, you're looking at him and thinking, this is what I need to be. So early on, from a nature perspective, I was always curious. Actually, at the age of 10, I remember I could draw things. I could create things. I learned about hydraulics, the basic hydraulics, and I started thinking, although we have piped water, we have a well where we grow, we get water from a well to water vegetables. How can I create a hydraulic? I swear I had never even heard of these pumps that were there. I came to learn about them when we were in. So I'm bothered and I'm thinking, how do I get the materials to do this? That curiosity, it's a gift that you have from your nature. And that never left me. Unfortunately, the formal education somehow took me to different places. I ended up doing so well in school. And you do so well in Kenya, the education system we had then meant that you get to Form 4, then you go to Form 6, you go to university, and some of the dreams you had, you keep upgrading them because now you are better than what bare minimum that you expect. For example, I wanted to be, I said I have to best my dad. So in the process, you keep going up, and then you find yourself in this situation. My early years, to be honest, I wouldn't say I was creative because I was struggling to connect the theory you learned in school and practically bring it to the job you're doing. But I think at some point when I said I left PricewaterhouseCoopers, I told myself I want to run a business because we keep telling people what they should do as part of the advice you give us as professional advisors, and they don't implement it. And I used to think, why are they not implementing it? I mean, I want to go there, do it myself, you see?
Yes.
And that's how I actually decided I want to get there. So and the reason I started by going to internal audit, I was the head of internal audit for London Africa, which was a huge organization, because I wanted to experience the entire business. And that really helped me because I then moved on to corporate governance, risk management, which is what then took me to UAP, and I got into strategy. And for me, who I am today, or the last, say, 20 years, came from that desire to do something, to solve a problem. When we looked, there was an industry a survey that was done by ACI, the Insurance Industry Association, back in 2007. And it was about the uninsured market. Wow, are people not taking insurance? And the moment I saw that opportunity, and I was doing an AMP at Strathmore Business School, we were told you have to do a personal agenda and organizational agenda. I just thought, look, for UAP, this is what we need to do. We need to make insurance more interesting. We need to get people to benefit from insurance, provide what people require. And so we carried on, and as we were getting better, one of the things that was obviously coming is this element of digitization. We used to call it e-commerce, yes. And you're thinking, how do I use the phone, for example, to sell insurance, which we did as far back as 2010 at UAP through USSD. And the more I looked at it as part of my job and were being entrepreneurial internally, the more I realized that for you to give customers an entire digital journey, there are certain service providers, there are certain it's not just the front end where you sell to someone, which is very easy, but the operational side, how do we make sure that someone's claim gets sorted out efficiently? That means you have to use technology. And the more I looked at it, I realized some areas we were going to struggle because the service providers like motor valuation, they were very manual. You used to be told, okay, we need your car valued. Then you go to AA or you go to Regent, and then you had to go to Embakasi. Now, traffic had become a problem. So along the way, there's a partner with Mucho brought, and he talked about some technology, which opened my mind that we could actually use technology to do this. Then I went to the existing valuation companies, and I said, look, guys, we need to help you to do this. We are willing to even invest our money because we know what it will do to our business. They were not willing to listen. So I just said, you guys will be disrupted. And then somewhere along the way, I mean, Old Mutual's values and my own personal values just weren't aligning. And I thought, I don't think I'm going to be here long enough. I'd hoped to literally retire to UAP, whether at 60 or 70, and also an owner of the business. I had some shares and I was hoping to increase. And at that time I said, that's not my future. Now, I immediately thought, this problem, I can take it up myself. And that's how I looked for the co-founder and we built it. Now, you're asking, how do you bring all the things that you're learning at work into your innovation. Now, the one thing, remember, I'm trying to solve a problem that I was still going to solve even at my workplace. Only this time I've left and I'm doing it outside. And one of my biggest client for a long time was still UAP. Because even if I left, the problem I was solving, the first buyer who was interested was UAP because we had understood this problem. So the key thing really has to be, do you have a problem that people are want you to solve and they're willing to pay you for it? First day we got the first check, I'm telling you I was so happy because I said someone believes what we have done adds value to their business. And we never looked back. And I remember being invited to a talk by Jack Ma when he visited Kenya, quite a number of years back. And, we were at Kempinski. And, this guy, there was a lot of buzz and excitement. Maybe you were even in that.
I was there, I met you. Yeah.
Yes. So, we sit there. This guy has come. Everyone talks about him, Alibaba, everything. And then he talked for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
And the only lesson, and I've never forgotten this lesson, do you know what he said? If you want to have a good and a successful business, find a problem to solve. If your business is not solving a problem, you see, Wawira, whatever she has done, is such a fundamental problem. But even one that is even emotive. So you can actually, if you add those two, you can understand why, literally, it has to work. And once you know, I got something I'm trying to solve, you will find resistance because people have been used in a certain way of doing things. For me, I was a bit lucky because I knew everyone in the industry. So I could go and push, solve it. That was my biggest job when we started. But still, there was so much resistance because people are used to certain value chains. So you're going to disrupt. There are those who are pursuing cartels to defraud insurance companies. They fight you. So it was a tough job. Yeah. But that belief that I'm solving a problem that requires to be solved and has to be solved. If I leave, someone else is going to solve it. And why should I leave? I mean, you're not a quitter. You'd rather simply say, you know what, I suspend all my life. I have to get this thing done. I feel that...
But now you're using your own capital, not using corporate capital.
We've never raised any capital. A few times we have considered, people have wanted to put in money, and then we've looked at it and said, we will lose the DNA and what we really want to do with this thing. So up to now, we haven't raised any capital, and we haven't even spent that much. I wouldn't say it's little, but not as huge. We're rebuilding our total platform today because I said we want to expand into other inspection services, and we have found local Kenyans who can actually develop it at a fraction of the price. Our Indian developers, the ones who develop the current platform we have, and we maintain a relationship with them. I hope they don't watch this.
They'll watch, but life has changed, technology has changed, AI is there. So
really, yeah. So for me, I have to say, underlying whatever it is that you do, there must be a drive, and that drive, you believe in it so much that you're not willing to let the dream go. Whether it is a job you're doing at UAP, because for me, even at UAP, in fact, I used to feel frustrated that I'm the MD because being MD, there are so many other things that you have to do, and all I want to do is this. So I used to say, is it possible to just create this innovative, entrepreneurial, part of the business, and you leave me with this? Yeah, I'll find someone else who's going to do these other things. But then you realize, if they remove those other parts, you come up with beautiful ideas, but they'll never pass that other part. So then you have to combine them, and you have to go through the inconvenience of having to be pulled back by this other work that you have to do. You're leading people, you're driving things. But ultimately, as a founder, it's a lot easier because you see, I don't have a long chain of people to convince, even though everything we do, I solve it. We don't do it, with my co-founder. Literally, we do it together with everyone, so that everyone understands where we are going.
So you see, the way my role in this is really not to say yes or no. I like your story and Wawira's and Ali's, even my story, which brings it back to one conversation. I'm 50, turning 51 this year. So when I look at my life, and James, I'm sure, told me his age, but I'm not going to say it on camera. But Ali, I think we're almost age mates, or younger than me.
You will all get it wrong if you're looking at me.
2 years young.
My early 20s. So when I think about it, it's something all of you have said. You said what shaped you is your initial conversation. You talked about your dad was a headmaster.
Yeah.
So the way I'm thinking, when I look at, I'm 51, I look at life in a span of seven years. You know, there's a book called The 10,000 Hours.
Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah, it talks about 10,000. 10,000 hours, if you divide by your typical days you work, 7 hours or 10 hours, okay, comes to around 7 years.
10. He says 10 years.
10 years, but that is for people who work in Europe. As in Africa, that is 7 years. Is that correct? So I think there's a turning point. Even think about your own body development. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56. They say by 51, kama hujatupa pesa yote, it will be too late. It's too expensive for you to be heartbroken after 52 or 49. If you get heartbroken after 49, my friend, Ali,
You die.
you die. So you can't start having heartbreaks after 49. Whatever heartbreaks you want to call them, whatever heartbreaks. Even love heartbreaks can't have at 49. It's so expensive.
True.
For you mentally, even emotionally. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. Those who are falling in love, please. And the lane, Akini, which is okay also, right? Because there's always that part of life. So what happens is that in these buckets of 777, you go through a significant learning experience. I don't know what to call it, education, but it's what you call inherently nurture versus
Nature.
So, so what do you go with until 7? They show you they show you emotional education. Cry, that's why children cry like they cry because they know, for them, I cry, I get. The way of learning is I cry, I get. Jaman lazima achomeke ili ajue. That's part of learning. Is that correct?
True.
So your 0 to 7 is an emotional learning. So people who don't go through 0 to 7 emotional learning, and then people who become successful early because of fundamental belief system of the family is 0 to 7. Even hardships. What did you say? You talked about, my parents were doing. You see, that ingrained itself in your head. So you start looking for knowledge that could help you over time solve that problem of what you saw growing up. You cool?
Cool.
Your dad was a headmaster, showed you process. You ended up in finance, internal audit. Is that correct? Your parents passed on early. Your grandfather, your uncle, put you through 5 H's. Happened 0 to 7. We are going to come. How is that shaped us moving forward? And also how we see the bigger picture and how our kids are going to relate to us moving forward. So then you look at 14, what do you learn? Social skills. So social education. Don't do like this, don't sit like this, don't walk like this, don't talk to people like this, don't do this. That is social education. Social education. So we learn social education.
Correct.
And then that's why we began saying this one is black, this one is white, this one is Muslim. That's why kids at 14 start playing that nonsense. Because we bring that level of education, black, white, nini, education. Is that correct?
Correct.
Then we go to 21. What do you do at 21? Mindset.
Develop your own mindset. Yeah.
Mindset. It's a mindset. You hope this child, before they hit whatever, they have their mindset. You can't tell them, don't smoke. I'll beat you. Don't take marijuana. I'll do. Don't drink. It's your hope in the child, the mindset you've corrected it, because the society will take them through whatever curve. Then you look at 28. 28, what do you do? Strategic. Your story, you've said everything. 28, you said strategic. I went to London. It's a strategic learning. You learn through peer-led groups, through experiential learning. Correct? Okay. Those ones, like Wawira and myself, started a business at 21. We said mine at 25. We had not reached strategic. We were at emotional and societal. Melewa? And academic, what you've learned. So huko kutoka hapo, you're in Amtaro, you go how you'll go. So you start developing your spiritual decision-making capability at a very early stage. So you make a decision from a spiritual point of view. When I mean spiritual, you understand what I meant. Third eye, right? So now we are at 28, strategic. What do you do at 35? You start applying a combination of strategic, social skills. You start balancing that capability. You reach 42, you're still balancing strategic mindset. Now you're managing it, but what you're doing, you're learning from the society, really. But when do you start applying your spiritual? When you start hitting 40s, late 40s, you're lucky. Some people even 70, I don't know what happens. At 49, you start thinking, hey, serendipity. That's this serendipity. Like, why is these things happening to me? What pattern am I not able to see? What is it I can't get? Is that correct? And then after that, life goes the way it will go. Is that correct? Me, I'm not there. Me, I've just been studying, and I think we are all in that realm. Is that correct? Now, let me come back to the point I want us to go to. You see, education teaches us how to be impressive. Correct? Until what point in your life here, this age, do you start saying, I went to Harvard? And you realize that
when you get to significance.
Yes, but at what point is that? We'll come to that. And then we said, entrepreneurship teaches us how to be responsible. So now you move from, I'm a billionaire, to, I went to Harvard, then you move into I'm a billionaire or whatever you are, or I have X amount. You start realizing, no. You start talking about I need to change lives, I do this. So when you introduce yourself, you say the impact you are finding yourself making. Is that correct? And then now bring us that conversation, our good people. At what point do you think that flip happened? Education to I did, I'm MBA, I am a PhD, whatever you want to say. At what point that flip happened? I employ 100 people, 2,000 people, 5,000. At what point do you flip and say, I need to be a country change maker? Over to you.
I really like that thing. That's you're talking about structure, and I really like how that 777. Even trees, by the way, you can be able to tell a tree's age by looking at the rings,
yes.
which is the same thing. And it has brought me to something that when I was at UAP, I used to go to Strathmore, especially to talk to managers, new managers and middle-level managers about their career, where they're going. And it's interesting, when things overlap and they look the same, there must be something truthful about it. So I'm just validating what you're saying. Because I used to tell them, look, at the time when you leave campus, you've just come from school, you've been taught the theories, you think you know. So when people start working, they even think the people they find there don't know what they're doing. They think I can do it better because I was taught accounting. Why are they not doing it the way I was taught? Not knowing that so you come with a lot of gusto and your own way. So that's around 20, from 21 to before 25. And soon, immediately, reality hits you and you realize, hey, wait a minute. By the way, I need to learn alone. That's when now they become soft. They want to learn from the people, their bosses and all that. Before, they were even they would tell people in their social circles and at home, these
that
people don't,
mine is stupid.
Those people don't know what they're doing. But now suddenly you discover, okay, it's different. Because you see, in a theoretical setting like in school, things are held constant, ceteris paribus, and then now you look at the impact, what happened. But at a workplace, everything is moving, all the parts are moving. So you get that, and then you start now realizing, hey, wait a minute, I need more knowledge, more education. People start going for these programs and all that from 27, 28, and then you move from what is called success. So you're working towards being very successful. If you're an accountant, you want to be the best finance manager, and everyone says, if you have a problem with time, go to this person. And people take pride in that. The people who really are proud that I'm able to do this very well. Until the point when you realize, but so what? Okay, I'm very good finance manager, but what for? Then people begin now bring that spiritual part. You're saying that, where am I in the world? What am I? This knowledge I have got, what am I using it for? And I relate with it myself because, and sometimes you're lucky when you start thinking about how you utilize the knowledge you have sooner. And sometimes it can be triggered, like in my case, I said it was triggered by this study in the industry which showed the opportunities and how badly we were doing and how better we could do. So you make it like immediately, you create almost like what should I call it? It's like a personal commitment. It's like a personal mission. So you start working towards that. And guess what? Up to today, maybe now I am reaching a stage where I'm like, be out there and help people now what you have learned. But I never left that dream that we can make insurance better. I haven't left it completely, but of course many other things are now happening. So today I am probably more interested in how can we get people, instead of doing it ourselves, how can you get people, not just insurance, but in many other areas, how can they be better? Because then you're helping your country, your region. I am a strong believer in Africa. I feel like the only people who take us where we need to go is not when we rely on outsiders, it's ourselves. And for that reason now, my story is changing. But I totally, the reason I wanted to go fast is because I wanted to share that and show that actually it's both connected with those stages. Even if you want to jump them, you realize that you're finding yourself there. But then again, if you keep your ears to the ground when you listen to the sound of the river, you basically find yourself ending in that situation where internally something is happening inside you that is moving you to that next level. And I can relate to it as I have said.
Oh, fantastic. And that's what we want. Conversations that keep flowing. What came up to your mind, Wawira, Ali? What out of that conversation in terms of, as we talked about, step by step, without realizing, even education, you can't just jump. Yeah, this technology is helping us jump, but what is it you can't jump?
I mean, I will say, look, Mike, in my interactions with my businesses, my partners, I mean, one thing that comes to my mind is, I mean, the school will never prepare you well enough. Universities will never prepare you well enough. I heard James say that you have to have this instinct. Some people are born with this knowledge. Yeah, some people say school of life, you walk. Where I come from, I think we have a saying that says, if you surround yourself with somebody who sells perfume, you'll end up smelling of perfume. And if you end up surround yourself with somebody who sells charcoal, you'll have black marks all over. So, I mean, no MBA has ever prepared me, I mean, for the profound loneliness that I've found in actually as a founder alone. Because some decisions, it's you. While if you look at my banking corporate life, decision-making, tough decision-making had to go through a process. You had a framework, you had a board, you had an exco, you had a management committee. So it goes through a process. But at the end of the day, when you're a founder, I mean, no school will ever tell you that you make a decision, it's yours. So it's tough. I'll give you an example. I remember one bleak night, 18 months, I think, into a product. And me and my two founders, we had a choice to make. And those two founders actually left good jobs. So we had to make a decision whereby we pay the cloud service company, or I choose to pay their salary. So they actually, I mean, it's a gift from them. They said, look, you don't have to pay us. We have equity in the company. So they were also developers. So they waived their salary for continuing to pay the cloud service fees. Now, if you look at, that's a noble thing they've done. But you know, at the end of the day, as a founder, you're not only the CEO, you're also the chief emotional officer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, your energy, I always say your energy is the oxygen of the company. So anytime you drop your shoulder or your ball, people read through. And to be honest, Mike, no school will ever prepare you well for that. Yeah, but there's certain positive things that I've taken from the corporate world. Like, is it Wawira? Balance sheet analysis, your P&L, your budgeting, your forecasting, you know, all that you take on board, you need it. So you need to analyze your financials for you to be able to relate to the bank. Why is the bank? Why is the KRA? Why, you know, all that. Secondly, is the the thing that I took on board very early is my risk appetite of the business. You know, in the banks are very good, the corporate world is very good at actually mapping risk, cataloging risk, and avoiding it. So for us internally, what we've done is, in all these businesses that I run, is I take them through a set of risk metrics, whereby you look at the operational risk, financial risk, regulatory risk, and all that. So there are some things that you've gained from the corporate world. There are certain things that you've learned, but to be honest, I would have preferred the schools actually should be more school of life. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting you said something that, and as we go to Wawira, something that James said. And it's something I've just realized I missed by not being in corporate. Boring. Let me explain. You see, why corporates remain relevant and remain in centuries is because they have figured out how to make sure boring remains as a fundamental part of the business. Boring, no boring. Bank balance sheet, naming, fanya easy planning, those are boring stuff. It's boring stuff. But what corporates have managed to do is make sure boring remains as the rails of the organization. If you think about it, I just thought about you guys something you said. Just because I've never really worked for a corporate, my life I've always wanted excitement. If it gets boring, fundamentally, I become edgy. Okay, you get my point? But you guys have worked for corporates that I'm sure, how many times did James say, he hopes he could, he wanted he could, but he couldn't because boring had to remain relevant. You said boring was balance sheets.
Yes.
But you had to look at it. Upende usipende ni lazima ufanye hiyo balance sheet analysis. So I've just found that to be very interesting. That maybe I missed boring. And boring maybe is what creates longevity.
Structure.
You know, and then boring is also an equation because you create people within a process. Anyway, just a side note, I realized both of you said that in a very interesting way. Yet boring, you have to do it for you to be successful in that business. Is that correct? Wawira, I don't know how boring your life is. Your business, you cook every day meal.
It's the same.
It's a change. Yeah. Tell me how boring your life is, because unfortunately, it's not boring. Maybe it's exciting, but maybe you could learn from you from that conversation.
So
having that you never worked for a corporate, have you?
No, I haven't.
So I'm keen to really understand how you immersed yourself into this business.
I haven't, and I think, maybe a little backtracking, we've spoken about MBAs and things like that. When I finished university, I entered a master's program right after universities when I came back. And that master's program was sort of it was a master's in public health. It was here at JKUAT and Kemri from the University of South Australia. And what I learned quickly is that, first of all, the education system was quite different here. It was very prescriptive, more than I wanted to be prescribed to in terms of how I should learn, how I should express how I should write a thesis. It was very, very prescriptive. And I did a year and a half, and then I quit. And my parents were very upset because they were like, how can you start a master's in public health and quit right so soon? It was a 2-year master's degree. So you're quitting towards you've already started your thesis, right? And I think one of the things that really informed me, first of all, I always say, obviously make decisions for yourself. But in your early 20s or mid-20s, don't start a master's degree. But that's my advice. That's what I would live by. Because I think at that age, I didn't really know what is the kind of master's degree do I want? What do I want to learn? And I remember talking to someone, because that's the time I was really thinking, do I concentrate on food for education full time? And someone said to me, this thing that you're doing, food for education, you actually don't need a master's in public health to do it. There's no way you're going to go and someone is going to ask, oh, you're feeding kids, but do you have a master's in public health? This is the only reason you'd be qualified to feed children. And I think that relationship really was very fundamental to me to help me in that decision to quit and to sort of step aside and say, actually, I don't need a master's degree to do what I want to do. Actually, I need to learn a lot of skills, and then I need to hire people who have more skills than I do. So if I don't know how to read a balance sheet, I hire someone who knows how to read a balance sheet, and they teach me. I don't have an MBA. I have so many people who work for me who have MBAs right now, which is great because they teach me a lot about the skills that they learned in university. If I need to learn, how audits go by in terms of PwC, I have people who've worked at PwC, Deloitte, and things like that, because I haven't had that experience. But you build a team around you that gives you that experience, and you learn what is my fundamental contribution to this organization. It's not really having an audit experience. It's not really having that, in terms of boring. I sit through a lot of audit meetings, internal audit, balance, how are financials going and things like that. And why I started, sometimes I'm in those meetings, I always say to my team, like, I just wanted to feed kids. And now I'm stuck in this internal audit meeting for like 2 hours. But those are the things that, to your point around boring, that keep the organization moving, that keep you have a pulse on risk, have a pulse on how the organization is going. So I think as an entrepreneur, as a founder, if you're starting something, you're obviously starting based on passion. You're not putting in your time, your effort, your energy. You're not telling everybody around you about the problem you're trying to solve if you're not passionate about it. But over time, what you have to develop is how do you bring in, first of all, the right people to support you, either through boards, either through staff, and the people who come on your team. And then how do you now get into the boring stuff, what you're calling the boring, which is what keeps the rails moving, making sure that your financials are there, making sure that you're closing your books, making sure that your performance management systems are working. Because when you have a team of more than yourself, when you start hiring people, you'll need those systems to scale.
Wow, and it's interesting, as you said, you have this whole ecosystem of people working with you today. But you're still a leader, and some of them are A students. I'd imagine.
I'm also an A student. I just did one MBA.
No problem. When a day I was with my lawyer, a transaction we were doing, and I told the guy, "Can you relax?" He kept telling me, "Mike, you have to follow a script." I told, please. No, you have to follow the script. I said, we're not going to do like this. But I realized that as you said, his way of thinking, and I told him, look, if I take the documentation you've given me, right, it was like, I think 500, 600 pages. Mike, you're gonna be witness. Can you take this, an arbitration I'm doing? Can you take these documents and review? I told the guy, please relax. So definitely there's a role of AI, I'm gonna come to it. I already feed them into AI. Like 2 days, and I was able to look at what are my convening conversations, because I'm the witness to understand this thing has been dragging for 2 years, so let me figure out what I even said 2 years ago. I can't remember all the facts, but now I remember the facts. And I realized that AI was able to help me accelerate my learning. So within that 1 day and a half, I knew exactly where I was in the conversation, because facts are facts, and connecting the dots are connecting the dots. And I want to bring this to an interesting conversation, because Wawira, is your business documented from a point of view of a case study? You have a case study?
Yes, it's
with
not
which school?
Stanford.
Stanford, great. Yes. Is your business documented? Flutterwave?
Flutterwave, it
Flutterwave is, because it's a $1 billion company.
Yeah, Flutterwave is. So actually, in 2 months, after Ramadan, that's on the 28th of March.
Where is it documented?
It's documented by Harvard and MIT.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Solvit is not yet documented.
But you sit in a university that is teaching.
Yeah, we will not bring Solvit yet, but
it's okay.
We've done a UAP medical business where there's already a case study.
Where is it? In which school?
At the Strathmore Business School. Actually, I remember one time when I sat in class and they were all debating, and I'm the protagonist, and they are told, by the way, this guy you are talking about is here, so you know how it goes. And also right now, we're also trying to document UAP before up to the time when Mucho came in and post that time a bit. And one of the things I do, this program I lead, the advanced management program, I do have 2 sessions with a class where I literally teach what I call the soul of the organization. And my reference point is UAP. Soul of the organization being how can people identify your company by just saying a few things and someone saying you're talking about UAP or you're talking about EABL or you're talking about Safaricom or whoever. That we call that the soul of the organization, and I demonstrate the kind of what UAP had done. And if you talk to the people who worked in UAP those years, the excitement that shows up on their face, because I think all of us were living the best time of our lives, and that's for me is so important because you spend so much time at your place of work, someone might say, "Oh, work is not about fun and all that," but really it is.
But you have. I think my point is you have your case study.
Yes.
At
I was just trying to explain. Yes.
I agree 100%.
Now that
and
will
like
now become
a
case. The medical one is already a case study being used there. This other one is going to be the story as a case that then will be used to teach. Where I'm not.
So let's agree.
There.
We're African. We're an African continent. So why is your case study in Stanford, in Harvard, and not in University of Nairobi? And why I use your case study for Food for Education in Stanford and not at Moi University? Just to include that. Because I think that's structurally the first challenge we're having.
So is
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Harvard. I just want to understand. There should have been a sort of process to go to Harvard. And I'm not saying there's a problem. Is it the case writing issue that our universities don't have case writing departments? Is it we are too busy, do not want our case studies told, but you guys have? Let me give you my experience. When in 76 Technologies, our case study was done 2010. It's on OMP. It's in Lagos Business School. It's in AMP. Right. It's called, I think there is one to do with entrepreneurship, there was one to do with talent. There are 3 case studies done by, funny enough, by a very passionate Nigerian lecturer. She used to do change management, people, when we did our OMP. AMP, or she taught us at MP. That was AMP, we did maybe 2010 or something, AMP. That time Strathmore just launched it. And what I was telling you earlier is that I have Nigerians calling me, emailing me, I'm doing your case study. They take, even my friend, I think the other day, sent me a big picture. I'm doing your case study, they sent like a picture there, they sent me. This was in 2010. You are trying to do case study back of UAP so that you can join the dots and connect the dots. So the other day, and today I challenged, I told you, I think our case study at 7 Cs is brilliant for anyone who goes to school, okay, MBA, from 2010 to 2026, I think it's the biggest lessons you could have. Biggest. You know, the biggest you ask yourself, you're doing 2 billion revenue. You know that time is a lot of money. 2010 is a lot of capital. You're not playing child's play here, right? And then you ask, hey, how does this work? What happens in a business as you go through turmoil, as you go through chaos? What happens to you as an individual, in your soul, in your internal combustion, in your mindset? When you just look at it and say, my God, I'm going to lay off these people, right? That to me is what they're not teaching us in our universities. We are being taught the glamorous stuff, and occasionally we've got this lady who did this lab thing. What's that? Theranos. Theranos.
Yes.
Every case study in America tells you Theranos how to over-engineer a business, how to lie, how to do that. Theranos case study even is a movie on Netflix. Jesus, it's a movie on Netflix. Now our question is, why aren't our stories? Why do we only document stories of success? We're not documenting the real stories that people should learn. Over leverage, government risk, regulatory framework changing. Yeah. When I look at my founder WhatsApp group, we're 900 or something people in the WhatsApp group. 900. Today I saw a post, something dropped there. Coco Networks.
Yeah, I read that.
I go hivi imeenda. The stories of Coco Networks. At that time, it was who, Lipa later, what happened. So in our informal conversations, there's a lot of conversations. Even there's a jury out there deciding why you failed vis-a-vis why you should have worked. Jury is like jury. You ask this person, whose document is it? Like when you're talking about UAP, you'll see people in a class debating. I wonder, do they even know what they're talking about? But you're there to give them context. Is that correct? So why aren't we documenting the mistakes, the correction, the pathway, the emotional journey? Why do we have to wait for entrepreneurs to go through chaos, suicide, depression, for you guys to then say, now that story, should you have been documented? Those are stories you should talk about. When we went to Harvard Kennedy School with World Economic Forum, we stayed there for, I think, 1 week, 2 weeks. The first thing they taught us, remember, class number 1, was to understand the soul of the entrepreneur. They never told us about businesses. They gave us a case to do. This guy had a moral judgment about himself. Does he stay in a company which will destroy him, his moral fundamentals, or does he stay along and say, I'll make this bank the biggest, but we are going to break rules. It's going to kill me internally, but we're going to be significant. That's what the first case study we did. Morality in terms of understanding you yourself as an entrepreneur. Internally, who are you to make that decision? Is that correct?
Correct.
So now the question, and I think the question, why aren't we having enough case studies? Why aren't we documenting challenges that we've gone through? Okay? Why? And that's how why founders came into being. I said, why are we glossing over entrepreneurship? What is this we are glossing over? There's a lot of gloss over, there's a lot of everything. Why can't we just say honestly what's going on? Is that correct? So let's go back to, and start with James. Ali, what is going to take us? What do we need? Do we create a financial mechanism to underwrite what it takes to do a case? Maybe you can tell us, James. What does it take to do a case?
Yeah, see...
Maybe let's start with, maybe the fundamentals are wrong. Is that correct?
Not really. I think, first of all, the case study approach was not always there. It's part of the innovation of teaching people that has come. And then when I did AMP back in 2007, there are a lot of cases that were very helpful, and you could, even though the setting was outside. So you need to build the capacity to be able to write these cases, because there's a way that you write these cases. There's
a way agreeing with you, but AI has simplified. Today, nobody can tell me about 2025.
You see now,
can be written.
Maybe because now we're in the age of AI, they might just proliferate in a way that we'll be saying, what were we thinking is even a problem? But I'm just talking about up to now. So the number one, I think because there were these cases available, then people thought, we can use this one. Number two, I think there is that issue of the capacity. Who is going to write the cases? Not everyone is able to write very nice cases. And people here, the faculty here are juggling between survival mode sometimes and all that. So it's the same thing. We don't do enough research in the universities compared with what happens elsewhere. But we are catching up. Then number three, I think, is our own culture. If you look at, say, the US, someone spends time in a particular office, and almost a year later, 2 years later, there's a book written about the experiences. If you look at Kenya, how many people have written books, even though they have very interesting stories to give? So we have this, even though we were very good at storytelling as a way of culture, it's like when we brought this foreign education, we lost something fundamental. And we can only begin to recreate it by emphasizing. So what has happened with the Strathmore Business School? They identified that as a problem, and they've said, you know what, we need to start writing our stories. Of course, there are a number of cases. The Equity's story has been written. Other companies, they are maybe uncomfortable having their story written, and you have to get over that hurdle of people feeling like, do I want to expose myself or not? When I say some things, some people will not believe what I'm saying. So who can drive it? I think the more we talk about it, the more people realize that there's learning to be gotten from this. And that element you have talked about, why are we not talking about when we fail? I don't necessarily think, normally human beings like to celebrate success, but every success has the challenges. I'd rather that I wrote cases that maybe ends in a nice way, but shows all the pitfalls, how better it could have been, as opposed to, if it's a case where you're showing we did everything right, but we've missed to look at this, and then this was the result, so that the next thing, like, earlier we were talking about what is the best mode of financing businesses in this part of our world. I'm sure there are case studies people can show and say, you use private equity, this has been the experience, say, in this region. It may be different in other parts of the world. If you go to the stock market, almost nothing for the time being, yet it is used. Use banks, I don't want to talk about it because I am sure I'll say something and then it will not necessarily be nice. So literally you look at where do people make money? Our businesses which can scale very quickly are not scaling because we don't have that. So in my view, we're getting to the point where we now want to learn from the experiences of others, and we have understood, having now seen it as well. I mean, how many people used to go to Harvard from Kenya, or this leadership and management program out of Kenya? Very, very, very few. So there was no exposure. Now there's a huge exposure. People like Strathmore, I think, have done a very good job. The program I lead, AMP, we've been looking for a business school in Africa to take our classes. And let me tell you, they are so limited that when we couldn't continue with a business school we were working with in Ghana, literally, we almost wanted to go back to Lagos Business School. But then the reason why we left there, because there's another program that goes there and people move from AMP to that program. So you don't want people...
So they cannibalize your customers.
Yeah, going to the same... I went to Lagos and then I'm going to Lagos again. Take them somewhere else. But because I had to look at the business schools in Africa, I just realized Strathmore Business School in Lagos might be the best business schools in Africa.
No, but there's also WIT in South Africa. But
I don't want to talk about anything.
Yeah,
but
we'll come to that.
I said I looked at the business schools in Africa where I could take.
Got it. But then the question I'm posing to you is really part of our conversation here is also to challenge ourselves and also to challenge we need to come out from the comfort zone that we currently have. True. So the question I raised to Wawira was, why is our case study in Stanford and not in University of Nairobi? Why is it not in Maseno University? Very simple question.
We'll come for you.
And then for you, as she's answered, and for you, the question is, why aren't you did case study A on my business. Why haven't you come to do B and to C? Why? And then, Ali, ni kweli ama si kweli?
Ni kweli.
Mimi naenda business school hapa.
Yep.
Kule tulienda. Nafanya Twiga Industries, Twiga Foods.
Yeah.
Okay? Mimi, then the next thing I'm reading on WhatsApp, we're fighting Twiga Foods, happen. I say, okay, what's the story now here? Right? It's not, there's nothing wrong with Twiga. It's just a business that is growing and going through its pain and growth, right? That's life, right?
True.
But then, why should the CEO then, or ex-founder or whatever, be struggling globally to explain himself when there's a case study I can read? This is what happened. This is how the numbers look like. This is where it went wrong. This is where it went right. This is why those conversations are not being told. Steve Jobs, when he's been fired, there's a case study to it.
Yeah.
He was fired. He was told out of his company. So you could have a story come here.
Yep.
So the question to us is, what do we need to do? And James being in this room, to go drive at Strathmore to do more local case studies, starting with Wawira's business, come to my business and do part B, part C. Go to Flutterwave and find what does it take to expand in Africa politically. Your business is Flutterwave. The amount of wahala you've had, if I remember here at some point, it's there.
It's only in Kenya.
It's only Kenya. Why?
Yeah, it's a
$1 billion business. How can it again in Kenya come face headwinds? What is it?
It's only in Kenya. Yeah.
Is that correct?
I'll talk about it after I've had Wawira. And
Can I?
Yes, please,
Mike,
please. Then Wawira, you tell us why we're not going to Strathmore.
I think I told over lunch I started by, I'm not a big fan of case studies.
Okay.
I had to do 100 in my life, I think. And it's not fun when somebody takes your intellectual property and then they consume it on another platform. That's not good. I think that's what most of the MBAs do. They take Mike's, Wawira, James' idea. Okay, you had different view, because sitting from your positions, you all have different views of me. So you describe me the way you see me. So a lot of kids on this MBA's programs, they see companies differently. And by the way, and some of the most genuine feedback solutions for the big problems of these corporates actually are within the class. And you find that, like James said, they invite the CEO to actually be
the protagonist.
Yeah, to sit there and not mention anything and hear. So, I mean, if I could get away with the case studies, I mean, because who said case study is a holy text? It's not. A lot of people don't talk about failure. We always say failure is an orphan. Success has many fathers and mothers. You know? So for me, I will probably think of creating a life scenario lab whereby I dump everybody, Wawira. Wawira has a problem here. She brings her life problem into the life scenario lab, and we think what to do. So who do we call? What do we do? That is, for me, much better than actually this case study thing.
And what is stopping you from doing that?
And nothing, Mike. I think that's a product that will come out of this co-founders battle.
It's good. We're going to talk about it.
There is just a clarification maybe I might give Ali, that you don't have to do a case study and identify the organization, the people involved. You can also do a case study. It's a real life situation, but you treat it like fiction, okay? And it is possible. So that the key objective, what I find useful about case studies, I do agree that sometimes you don't want to expose too much of it, especially it's ongoing, because you probably don't want your competitors knowing. But what I find useful about case studies is the fact that what it does is it generates genuine and authentic conversation in class. And you know, the way I have understood this education at a certain level, there are no truths. The truths are relative. So in your different situation, you learn from the same case or conversation in class differently based on your experiences. But everyone ends up learning something. So it's a very good way of, because as a teacher, if you stand there and you just give a lecture, it's the most difficult and most boring thing, because by the time you're done 10 minutes, everyone is tired. But the moment you teach through this conversation and then you only step in to kind of summarize and give a framework like you did with us at the beginning, then it helps. So I still encourage you, you may not necessarily need to expose who you are, but for the sake of people learning what can make them succeed, what pitfalls they need to avoid, let's do them.
Actually, what we do at
That's why we're here. Think about it. It's almost like we are a case study.
True.
There's things I know about Ali today that is giving me a retrospection yourself. But we're the same way as we get to see how we can get her case study. Maybe the case study conversation or description of what we call case study needs to change. Maybe it's coming back to you, and then Ali, tell us your business. I find it fascinating, to be honest. I would like, if you don't mind, you'll tell us about this. Generally what I tend to do, I tend to then spend some businesses, the CEOs have offered, I come and spend a half day, one day. From morning, just look at the business, I ask, what are the units, why, I've done that. And it's been very interesting. I've ended up learning a lot. Recently we did one for biofuels. She was with you where you're seated, James. And we went in the morning, how milk is processed. I didn't realize that you've got 25 products, SKUs, all the way from mazamala to jam to everything. Cooking, that thing, what is that thing? Cooking, the ghee, no, not ghee, the one you use for cakes and whatever it is.
Whipping cream.
Butter.
The cooking creams.
Cooking creams they have. There are a lot of stuff they have, And now all of a sudden in my house, there's a lot of bio products that I'm using, right? Now I went there, I saw the process, I said, hey, yeah, it's crazy. Is that correct? So we are happy to see how if you guys want, we come and spend time with you. And you see the business. I was really fascinated to see how you make 600,000 items move per day and you're still okay. Is that correct? So
Yes.
over to you, case studies. Tell us, what is your ideation? Do we go document case studies? Why are we in Harvard? Is it because it's them who chose the capital they came to you? Is it that no one locally came and told you, let's do a case study?
So, I mean, our case study was done a couple of years ago. It was actually both I've just remembered, by Berkeley and Stanford. And every year I go back to a class in Berkeley and teach virtually because it's too far to go in person. And what you've said about MBA students being very curious and asking a lot of questions, especially because they've debated and read the case study and you're just joining for an hour. But I want to agree with that. I think a case study is a specific lens of a problem or of a company at a specific time. So if I think about what we've achieved at Food for Education, our case study, both at Stanford and Berkeley, it was the same one, showcased a specific challenge we were dealing with at the time. Now that time has passed, we're not dealing with that challenge anymore, but also there are other challenges. So for example, we developed a technology called Tap-to-Eat, which is what most parents use across our schools to contribute for their meals at a subsidized amount. When I was developing Tap-to-Eat, I'm not a technology, I said I'm a nutritionist. I'm not a technology person in any way. So hiring a tech team or getting the right tech partner was such a sort of transition. And for a lot of founders, if you want to have a tech solution to what you were saying, I don't have a co-founder. So I had to find a tech partner and figure out how do you pay a license fee? How do you make sure that you're not, what is the right amount of license fees should you be paying? And then later on, because we moved the technology in-house, you start learning the cost of group GCP, of why GCP over AWS, which is Google versus Amazon. What are you investing in? And then you see the invoice and you're like, what? I'm paying this company this amount of money. And I think, to the point about case studies is that I think there are many other platforms that we can use. It doesn't have to be the case study way. It's probably these conversations that we're having here. It's probably what Ali is saying about brainstorming on a specific problem the founder is having. Because something you said is that starting an organization and running it is very, very lonely. Incredibly, incredibly lonely. I usually say it's the hardest thing I've ever done with my life. And at the end of it, it's taken a piece of my soul to do this work, right? Yeah. In a good way, with all the rewards, with all the impact that we've made, it's incredibly, incredibly difficult. So sharing that with people who understand that, people who can advise, people who you can tell, yeah, I know you're going through that. And sometimes I do, I invite people to, when people reach out to me, they come and we have a conversation. And I've realized that a lot of founders, what they're struggling with is actually loneliness. Because you talk to them, they want to talk to you about strategy, they want to talk to you about financials. But if you just get to the crux of it, it's like they would just want to hear that you're not crazy, you're not alone, I've gone through this, it's going to pass. That person said that to you, don't worry. They also told me this thing would never work, and look, it's working now. And that kind of language or that kind of knowledge is what we really need, especially in the entrepreneurship space. So the case study, I think, documents what happened during this time. And you mentioned the idea of trigger, but there's so much that happens within a company's lifetime. And I think we have to normalize how to bring those conversations out. I think there's also a lot about what we value as success. When I was reading, I've read a lot of, every time there's a startup issue, they start with has raised X amount and has failed. so that headline is like the money was meant to guarantee success, right? That's the assumption that we're making in this space, that if you raise X amount of money equals you're going to live forever. But we have not talked enough about systems. We have not talked about the kind of talent that you need to hire, the kind of money, capital. You know, we've spoken about predatory type of capital. So is it the right type of capital, even if you have a big headline of X amount of money raised? Have you built the right systems? Are you the right person to lead the organization, or do you come to a point where you say, actually, I need a COO, CFO of this level of caliber to help me support the business? So I think also we tend to oversimplify what we expect from organizations, where we say, and also what you mentioned, the regulatory and the government framework, where we say that because you've raised X amount of money, you must be able to do X. But running a company is very, very, very complicated. And I think having more conversations will enable us to get to the root of it.
Wow, interesting. You've touched multiple things. And that I want to now, let's now try and start aligning the flight path to land. So 2 things have happened. We started by looking at education. Now we've taken a helicopter view and wondering, does the case study model work? Does the state of how you see your business remain? Doesn't it? Keeps changing and evolving. So the company A today, Safaricom, for instance, 10 years ago, today Safaricom is about to sell, whether it's at a high price, low price, watasema vitu mingi. Only some MBA students will one day say it was high or low.
There'll be a case study.
You can choose. There'll be a case study to be high or low. Is that correct? Is that correct? But it will be passed. We'll figure out that later. So what's happening? For me, the way I look at it is we align towards where we're going to go. We've got 30 minutes. You know, it's already 2 hours.
Wow.
I told you it's going to be long. Don't realize it. But now let's assume that we are now pivoting to start figuring out how we're going to land this plane called education and educational paradox. Different entrepreneurs are set here, from beginning entrepreneur, from beginning to the end. Wawira, James, significant learnings across dealing with corporate titans. But that UAP was set up by entrepreneurs at ground level, who have since passed on, or some of them are there. It's interesting. And then it has moved into generational or different global insurance companies. Ali, coming from billions, managing billions, to those billions end up buying companies that some of them we see, even hotels. I remember Ali closing a transaction to bear some of the hotels in Upper Hill, I remember.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, and then now you're where you are, then also chairman and helping build some of these billion-dollar companies in Africa. Now, so let's look at an area where things come together: education and founder reality. And I sent you this document. So there's education pillar here. We have to land in this runway. We have to choose how everything's going to come together, correct? So education, I've got clear syllabus. It's clear. Your founder reality, there's no roadmap. You won't even end up, you think you're going to land, but you land up in a bush. Is that correct? It's okay. Education gives you sort of right answers. 1 + 1 is 2. 2 + 6 is 8. But somehow, in entrepreneurship, 2 + 4 can be 5. And 2 + 3 can be 2 still. It also depends on what trade-offs you are making.
Yes.
People could think you're moving forward, but you know in your mind, I've compromised. I've really not moved forward. People have seen that big number in the newspaper, but behind my back, I'm thinking, oh Jesus, that was I am losing. Is that correct? It's not equally. But on paper book, it looks okay. On the textbook, it looks perfect. Then there's also graded failure. You're either A, as Wawira says, she's an A student. Who is an A entrepreneur and who's a B entrepreneur?
And I'll say A in KCSE, which I think does not guarantee success in other things.
100%.
So whether we're grading, I think KCSE, when I said A.
Or A, whatever, or first class. So we say
yes,
education has graded.
Yes.
First class, A, whatever. But who is an A entrepreneur and who is a B entrepreneur? Somebody would argue Elon Musk 10 years ago or 5 years ago was a D entrepreneur. Today you guys are clearly saying he's A entrepreneur. How is that possible? The same guy. So when I'm building a business and I'm on my back foot, you say I'm E. When I'm front end, I'm A. How is that working? Is that correct? So let's agree, how do we grade entrepreneurs? And that then defines the lens under which we see and define success. Back to what you said. And then we look at external validation. As in education system, there's a lot of external validation. You went to Harvard, you went to Stanford, you went to Strathmore, wherever. As a business, what is the validation? It's internal judgment. You make a decision and you say, hiya, you keep fanya. You win, you keep winning, you keep validating yourself. Is that correct? You keep self-correcting until you land. So if you're working for somebody and you're a corporate entrepreneur or intrapreneur inside, you just use other people's capital to grade where you want to land, right? Then there's what we call, in education, there's individual success. A is mine, it's not me and you. How is it me and you? My first class is mine. But in business, it's a collective success. It's you and the 5,000 people. It's you and your management, as you said, James. It's you and your team where you chair. But then finally, education brings credibility, credentials. Remember, this is where, then we finally said entrepreneurship brings, or founders bring credibility. So you come to the table and say, I have achieved. But also failure is also credibility, because you've been able to own failure. So now let's learn how we're going to learn this. And we're going to learn this by asking you a really bit of a different question. How do you unlearn? What are the things you must unlearn? What are the things you think you've unlearned that had been coded in your system? This is a very important question.
True.
Because there's somebody who's trying to learn the same nonsense. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But should they go through the learning to unlearn? Is unlearning a journey that you must go through? So what have you unlearned in your path as you go along? Is that correct?
Let me start by giving you an example. I was in this big investment forum in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh. So there was a young entrepreneur who was very interested in our tech. So techie guy, t-shirt, jeans, running almost a $500 million tech company. And he wanted us to integrate our APIs to see what he can do in Africa. So he looked at me and he passed my CV straight to the point, and he asked me, what does your product do? And then I realized it's not your CV, it's actually what your product can do. Where we go back, Mike, you said, what problem are you solving? So can you help me solve my problem? So that left me with a big,
ego.
I mean, it was a reality check at the moment, and I liked it. Coming from a 24 years old, never Googled me, never looked at my track record, boom. But I went back to the hotel and I thought about that question. I thought hey, actually he has a valid point. He was there looking for a solution and he was asking me what your tech stack can do for me. I'm interested to hear that. I'm not here to hear Ali, 20 years of experience, former CEO, MBA, No, I'm here to find out what your product can do. Question that you've asked that is very important is when you work in a bank, when you work in a corporate, I think James can tell you, is you have this notion of consensus disease. As a founder, that is one disease that I've actually had to fight. Because you remember, when you work in a corporate institution like a bank, you have to get buy-in of people. Get buy-in of the risk department, get buy-in of the finance department before you present. So as a founder, that's really, my bubble was burst. And I had to actually, kill that very early, because we were at a meeting whereby I was meeting 5 developers, and one of the young guy, actually clever guy from your school, Strathmore, and he goes to me, hey boss, kwani tuko hapa United Nation, are we doing a product or are we doing a United Nation resolution? And I looked at him and I said, hey, you're onto something. Yeah. And he told me, the market does not vote, boss. The market moves. So let's get this product out there. So that consensus I had to unlearn. And you only get to know that when you talk to, they call them the guys of the Gen Zs, these guys who think outside the box, because they're constantly outside the box, looking inside the box. While we here, me and Mike and you and James, I don't know where, we are the box actually. We always claim that we are the table, we are the box.
Yeah, so, yeah. The box.
So, So, and also another thing is I managed to unlearn is getting the perfect product, getting the perfect launch. When I was the CEO of the bank, everything had to be tip-top. My speech at 2 p.m., the curtains go, fireworks go at 2:30, everything. That had to quickly go out of the window. Yeah, so if you had a product, let's test it. You know, somebody there understands it and also will get good ideas about it. So like one of the products we launched, we met Safaricom and they had a few ideas around it. I went back to the drawing table, we worked on it, and we actually didn't go back to Safaricom. We went to other ways. So when you have a product, don't waste time. Yeah.
There's a lot of unlearning.
A lot of unlearning. Yeah.
So interesting. And I think those unlearning lessons is what makes you a good steerer of other entrepreneurs to help them. Because I think sometimes some founders, you say you have to feel the pain. I see bees, I have to go and, actually, why are you going to those bees, Baba? You know that these things will choma you. So they sting you. Why do you have to? Then you have to keep, then you're in a body, you're thinking, this guy is putting us through this. Hell, and he wants to go through the bees, and how do you convince the guy that this is not the journey? Is that correct? James, what do you need to unlearn?
You know, I was listening to Ali and I'm like, this guy is saying exactly what is in my mind. So like, I don't have an answer to give, but maybe I can put it in a different way. And I'll take two things. One is perfection. The other one is result is what matters. So, you know, so often, depending on the environment you're in, you tend to find people working to build evidence that they did it to justify themselves. And, you know, you can end up finding an organization that works a lot, works very hard, but then you don't have results. Then you slowly begin to realize, you know, all this too much business means nothing if you don't have results. So then, you know, you learn to start from the end and work backwards and looking at what you need to do. And I would say that even at a personal level, you have to connect your own personal vision to the vision of the organization. If you can't define exactly where you expect the organizations to be, you end up finding that you are doing, in fact, I used to call it doing business with ourselves, where the organization seems like it's going, but there is so much activity, but producing a lot of heat, but very little results. So I feel, number one, the thing I learned is don't look at a process. Don't look too much at process. Don't look at what would prove you have worked, but look at how do I get results. And when you get results, there's something called credibility. If you read a book by Stephen Covey about speed of trust, he says one of the ways of building trust is credibility. And credibility, the one underlying pillar of credibility is, do you have the results? I think the other one, and Ali has talked about, is that element of trying to be perfect. You know, perfection. And I have to say, in my earlier life, I think I lost a lot of time by trying to do it so perfectly that I lost a lot of time. And I'm not even sure whether it was perfect. It was perfection by my definition. But let's put it this way. You get stuck trying to make sure everything is okay. And one of the books I read, because when I decided to start Solve It, I read 4 books, and I read a few other books. But the one that had the biggest impact, and it was a relatively new book, and I think it's quoted a lot these days, is what you call the lean startup by Eric Ries. And he talks about the minimum viable product, MVP. Which is what Ali is in direct. Yeah. So, you co-create. Let me tell you, the Solvit we conceptualized, the way we were doing things, that was before the age of the AI as we know it today. And we were thinking that we can use technology to automatically generate the value of a car. And then we ended up finding, no, you need someone who comes and checks and says this okay or not okay, this calculation is right. Because the factors you use are okay, but the inputs vary a lot, and it was so difficult to automate those inputs. So we ended up, you end up finding that based on the feedback coming from your clients, you keep having to change here, change there, until eventually you get to what Ali is saying. You have to solve someone's problem. Going back to Jack Ma, if you're not solving a problem, you will be there again, grinding a lot and generating a lot of heat and not getting results. So for me, that is very important, focusing on the results and not focusing too much on the process, on the perfection, on getting everything right. You will never, even today, I know Solvit is not perfect. It'll never be perfect. I know things we should do, but even how to do them, I don't know.
Wow, interesting. Interesting. But let's also talk about, as Wawira is coming to what she has unlearned, are there emotional areas you've had to unlearn? Not technical.
Oh yeah, let me just.
But as Wawira, you want to think it?
No. Thinking, I just want to say one. Because of that perfectionism of mine and expecting a lot, high expectation from people. I used to be really impatient with people, and sometimes you get to a point where I have a crossover and I get upset and I say a few things that are not nice. It required one of my managers to actually, I had a time with him, and should I say Somed, and ever since that time I've never done it with anyone. And when he went back, he shared a message in the managers group around, I can't remember exactly what he said, but essentially I just realized he was addressing me in a nice way to help me improve. And guess what? Ever since that time, I have never sat there and told of anyone. I might tell people I don't like what has happened, but this element of getting upset, of course, sometimes I get very close to that, and I'm nearly getting there, and then that experience plays back, and guess what? Over time, today, honestly, people might think I am the calmest of human beings. This out of all those experiences, and I guess also age does something to you. But I dealt with it when the solution wasn't the age. The solution was that it's a lesson I learned, because at that time I used to think when you really show someone you're upset, they're going to take it serious. Now in this case, this guy is just like, you know what? Honestly, and now you think about it, I didn't do it deliberately. So why should I even be bothered that my boss has kerereshed me? You come to learn that he's never going to change because you made noise. He's going to change the moment you now start, first of all, and I even dealt with the same thing with my children, where I realized if I change from getting upset with them and saying you've done this wrong, but telling them, when you do this is how I feel. And they begin to say, oh God, I make my dad feel like that. All the employees says, oh my God, okay, I didn't know that I was really hurting the boss. And if you're a good boss, your people don't like to hurt you. They really feel they don't. But these are things now I had to learn to deal with now that problem, and the productivity, the teamwork, and really became better. I don't think I'm going to talk about this again. I think I said my piece. Thank you.
Wow, interesting. Very profound. Very similar experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, there was a lot of unlearning around sort of my relationship with failure. So I mentioned sort of like, I went to Precious Blood High School, got an A, went to university, had started getting, that system was distinctions. And then because I was working 3 to 4 jobs, obviously I had to prioritize one, school fees or working. And I started prioritizing working a lot. So I started failing my studies. I remember the first time I got a supplementary exam. I didn't even tell my dad. I told my mom to promise not to tell my dad because it was the first time in my life where I was explaining to him that I'd failed my exams and I'd have to resit. Luckily, I wasn't forced to repeat the course. That sort of fear and that feeling of failure came into my own journey in entrepreneurship, and I had to really reestablish my relationship with failure, where you stop fearing it and you stop thinking that this is a definition of me. So if I fail, it means I am XXX. It means I am XXX. I'm a failure. I'm not made for this. I can't do this. Maybe someone else better can do it. Maybe, if they got someone who went to Harvard or who has an MBA, this would be better. They could pitch better. They could fundraise differently. And taking failure as, it sounds so cliche to say failure as a lesson, but really reframing it to how do you look at what you learn from that has been really, really, really fundamental, and something that I've tried to even, within my team, build that culture. Because I realized in Kenya, especially because we have a very, if you go through the 844 system, it's different now, but if you went through the 844 system, you were graded. And that grade determined the worth of your teacher. Like, will your teacher pay more attention to you? Will he be happy with you? Will the school be, the environment, the parents be happy with you? And if you get a B, a C, a D, it's very different in terms of how you're treated. And therefore, it becomes a definition of yourself. So unlearning that sort of relationship has been really, really important. And that enabled me to what you're saying around, I think many times we make, people say, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. So if you're shipping something, if you're trying to bring a product into the market, if you're trying to do something, you're thinking like it has to be perfect. But a lot of times it just has to be good. And you just have to take it out and see how does it work? What is the feedback that you get from people? Like when we were creating Tap-to-Eat, we wouldn't have created Tap-to-Eat. Today is used by the 600,000 kids that we work with every single day, and that sort of like being a national platform for school feeding wouldn't have been possible without the input the parents gave us. The inputs around like, no, I don't like when the interface looks like this. I'm not able to top up like this. I'm not able to do, all these different things, and the teams on the ground as well. So looking at how do I bring something to the user quick enough for them to give me feedback instead of waiting until I feel like it's perfect. Because I always say, by the time you go, you'll still get feedback. So you might as well speed up that process of going to the user. You get the feedback and then you iterate really quickly versus like spending 3 months, 6 months, however long. We take quite a short time to get things out. And also building an experimentation culture within the organization, which is something we've done, and process so that we're consistently encouraging experimentation and innovation within the organization. So I had to learn that relationship with failure, and also not letting perfect be the enemy of good. I think something else I had to unlearn, especially as a young person, is that, your voice, I think, I'm a millennial, and there's a feeling that sometimes when you go into meetings or you go into a place, especially when you're a young person, you're like, does my voice actually matter? If I say something, will someone actually listen? And so unlearning that, hey, I can walk into a room, I can say something. It takes a long time. It used to take a longer time for people to actually listen to me, because I didn't have the credentials of I worked here, I did this, I built this, and I didn't have that long career behind me. And so I had to really make my way through those places, but also have the patience to let people get to know you, to let people actually listen to you. And that takes time, it takes persistence, it takes someone ignoring you 5 times and you going home and just be like, did that person just say that? But you still, you say to yourself, tomorrow I'll go to the meeting still and have to voice myself and have that person listen to me. And, I've done this for many years, and eventually you get listened to. But as a young person, you can feel dissuaded, you can feel discouraged, especially going into rooms. The first time I started, I went to the Ministry of Education. I was, I think, 24, 25, and I was like, we're feeding kids. And that time it was, we were feeding 40 children. And the person who was there, God bless him, he was a great guy, but he laughed at me and he said, do you know how many kids are in this country? 40 children is nothing. Go and come back when you're feeding 1,000. And I took that as a challenge and I went. I felt obviously discouraged. I went, I found a way, I fed 1,000. And I went back. Obviously, it was another person in the office because they'd had a transition. And they said, 1,000, that's nothing. Come back when you're doing 10,000. And I took that as a challenge. I came back when I'm doing 10,000. And that's how, you know, we, for example, work with government now, because now they've adopted what we do and they're really supportive. But starting at 40 and getting laughed off, ideally from the office, and then going back and saying, okay, now we're doing 1,000. And to me, even 40 was a big, big achievement in my early 20s. But that person was like, that's nothing. So learning how to keep going back and keep going back and keep going back, that's a very, very difficult lesson. And I think a lot of young people, we get dissuaded and we get discouraged. But learning that, you know, if you're persistent, things essentially give way.
Wow, it's an interesting conversation in terms of failure. It got me thinking, and in 2 dimensions of this conversation. What have I unlearned? Unlearned successfully, and what am I currently unlearning? So what I have unlearned, I've also tried to look at why I had to unlearn it. As I grew up, my parents were very cheerleaders in the family of all of us, but I don't know why I got a lot of accolades from my parents. Mike do it, very nice. I'm not the first one, and I'm not the one who never went to boarding until university, until O level. So I'm the one who stayed with my parents. And all my siblings were away. I'm the one. So my parents gave me a lot of cheerleading. Okay? But then that cheerleading led to a lot of validation, need. So when I do anything, if it works, I just required validate. It's okay. It's worked. You see. So there's a positive side to that you always push to be successful. And whatever happens, there's too much validation. So it's almost that you have this invisible stadium of people validating you. Does it? I don't know if I'm being crazy.
No.
So you're thinking then like, I've done this, I've hit 1 billion revenue, I've done this, I've taken my business here. So you're constantly, mentally, thinking there's a cheerleading squad in the stadium, cheering you in this Raila Odinga stadium, you know? So then you wake up, and then you unlearn, and you know there's no cheerleading. It's a big issue. That's a very mental and learning issue. And you realize, you know, if I drive a $2 car, I drive a $300,000 car, there's cheerleading is myself. Is that correct?
Correct.
Oh my God. Then, you know, you unlearn when you go through crisis. Because the path to your growth was also because of cheerleading. And you also do things. You dare yourself. I'm going to jump from here to there. But you know, because you're thinking people are cheerleading, that's what actually makes you jump. Then one day you miss a step. And you? So then you realize there was really no cheerleading. Cheerleading was in your head. So whatever you choose to do and how to celebrate this failure or success, whatever, it's in your head. So that to me was a very major unlearning. And in a very advanced part of my life, in my 40s. And I think that was very difficult. Because it had to come from an internal being. And today, I really don't care what car I drive, how.
Exactly.
Those things don't move me. Is that correct? I can be in your house, excellent, $5 million, excellent, I'll be happy for you. It's okay. It doesn't drive me from a cheerleading point of view. So that one I've explained. And that has then come into my life in a very interesting way, because now you no longer have cheerleading, you cheerlead yourself. So let's now look at what I'm trying to unlearn today. The last 1.5 years, AI has come. Now just to close this AI conversation. Then, what AI has done is made me realize I'm not crazy. I don't know how to explain to you.
Yeah.
Earlier, I would think, I'm in bed, I like thinking in a shower, I come out from a shower, I think, you know that thing, Can be done like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. A very system-oriented person. So I go and put it on notes. Then I have to look, what is my convening capability to get people who can help me achieve this convening capability? So I look for Wawira, I look for Ali, I look for James, I look for this person. I try and buy in until all of you come around to help me achieve this mad thing I have. Is that correct? So it's good you build teams and everything. Now, what am I unlearning? I don't need to convene that crowd of people to execute what I need to do. And how has AI helped me do that? What I've learned is I can go, use AI and tell AI, listen, you're my creative director. You're my system analysis person. You're my PMO. Is that correct? So what AI has done is remove that barrier of entry to what I think is my crazy idea. So if I look at Founders, where we are today, the short period of done it in 10 months, it would have taken me 4 years to do this. 4 years to do this. Because I would have had to get convening capability, who does my copywriting, who is checking this brand development. So now it's a matter of getting like-minded souls who have vertical understanding. You're an architect. You understand architecture. I cannot AI it. And me understand what I want in my kitchen. So I do AI what I understand in my kitchen. You architect, you tell me the engineering capability, the architecture. We meet, we close, we move. So that would have taken a significant amount of time to think I need a QA, I need this, I need that this. So I found execution moving faster now is going to happen, but I have to unlearn that I don't need to bring this click to move ahead. It's a very powerful statement I'm telling you.
True.
From an AI point of view. So what AI has made, what I'm unlearning, I don't need a crowd to move faster. I need competent people who are able to embrace technology faster to move. And that the ideas we have in your head are not crazy. Somebody else globally is doing it, only that not in your realm.
True.
Whether it's Korea, somebody's doing about, somebody thinking about it, right?
True.
I remember going to India in Hyderabad. Is it Hyderabad? I can't remember. And there was music playing in this hotel, Intercontinental. And I thought to myself, oh, that music is nice. Wow. Ooh, I wish there was an app you could just listen to like this. It tells you the song. So I had to go to the receptionist, that song. And then it had passed. Now she said, which song? Then I said, and one day I'm sitting in Barcelona in a founders conference. And the guy next to me is the guy who built Shazam. I think to myself, where? Because I tried thinking about this thing 2 years ago. Somebody here has built it. Now Shazam is being bought by Apple, right? So in Shazam, where do you end up? iTunes. So what I'm unlearning right now, I don't know if it's selfish, is the capacity to think anything possible in the world and then put it into AI platforms. Then now figure out what's my pathway towards that execution.
Gotcha. And
then having the clarity that if people around me can't do it, I should not get frustrated and go crazy. And there's somebody else in the world, we can convene together to do it.
To execute it.
So that's my next, I hope I'll have finished that learning. Now that will be my learning. Once I learn that, is figuring out how to get those people. Then we'll now look back to AI. Is that correct? You've said something interesting as we close. I told you 2.5 hours will go. AI is here. AI is in your business. James, AI is in your business. I even think your $1 billion shield transaction is going to come in. Your business fully embraces AI. I would almost say it without to assert it. Is that correct? Almost.
Yes, thinking about it.
However, I would assume to a large extent that's going to happen. Be able to predict supply chains, whatever, fraud, whatever you need to see. Is that correct? Now, Ali also yourself. Is that correct? How do you think? And I think there's something you said that's very powerful, and I'll close with it. How do we bring our learnings together to become the new case study way of learning? Is that correct?
Correct.
How do we? Because now I can't read 10 pages. James has said sending a case study person to sit in this class is expensive. Formats, what. Is that correct? So how will AI help us move forward as Africa? Yet this guy who owns Liquid Telecom, what is he called, the billionaire? Stripe. The last time I checked Stripe there on a big post, he's saying, he's a billionaire, he says, the next billionaire in Africa, and I'm not saying billionaire is important, because billionaire means you also can impact lives. I think in whatever you do, if Wawira becomes a billionaire, it means she's feeding, she's already a billionaire, maybe she wants a billionaire in dollars, she has to be feeding 10 million, 20, 30, 40 million people. By that time, I hope she's not a politician, right? Okay? So if she's feeding 100 million people, then it's a whole different regime. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So coming back, because it's $1 a day, I would assume it's $100 million a day you're making sales. So coming back without any preference of closing, what would you say AI in the realm of learning, in the realm of your business and your thinking is going to change or will impact the journey? And that can be our closing position. And then as you do that, also you can close in terms of your reflection of what you've gone through in this show. We started by saying 3 hours is not going to be, 2.5 hours is not going to happen. We are 2 hours, 30 minutes. Is that correct? So you realize it can be a lot. Is that correct? So over to you. Anyone, you can go in, there's no order.
Yeah.
Anyone who is ready to look at that close.
AI is here. AI is here to stay. It's the future. I believe AI will handle tactical, scalable things that humans will not be able to do, like you said.
At the speed.
At the speed of what you expect it to do. I think our role should be very clear because there's something that AI will not have, which is empathy. So we as humans, we should actually be more, I see my role in terms of this AI evolution as the chief context officer. So what I put, how I massage, I can actually predict how it comes out. So we need to understand the whispers of the data that go in there, because it can be dangerous as well. You can imagine. Yeah, today, last week I heard that one of my cousin's company, they're firing almost 6 of their developers. They don't need them to run the apps, to do everything. It's all done by AI. So, there's
what's dangerous about that?
Sorry?
What's dangerous about getting people empathy? So what's the balance? Do you keep the engineers, as we wrap, do you keep the engineers are not productive because they refuse to scale up? Or out of empathy, do you keep them because AI has come? What do you do? Is that...
No,
just
actually,
explain to me the definition, because I don't see anything sad about it. I think they need to repurpose themselves and become chief software engine designers to give the software context.
Correct.
Because right now, maybe they're not giving software context. They're transactional, or I'm here as a coder, but back to you.
One thing, actually, when you mentioned before, emotional, what do you unlearn? Okay. In that point, I advised my cousin, the best habit, you can have is, and also try not and confuse kindness, with the avoidance of necessary conflict. If you have to fire somebody for incompetence, not delivering, don't be kind, especially when you're a founder, because it's your money that is going down the drain. So
do you fire your co-founder because they've refused to embrace AI? Imagine you're a co-founder, like James. He knows, your gut feel tells you, he sees AI, my guy is my technical co-founder. Please tell him I have no issues with him. The guy refuses totally to evolve. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? What do you do with that co-founder?
To be honest, find every means to buy him out. Okay. It's easy to say, but education, also awareness, raising education and awareness. Invite him to certain conferences. Understand the importance of AI. To be honest, I will be. As he's my co-founder, it will be my job to educate him the benefits, and also show him the commercial benefits, what comes along with this. Because today our share is at $X, tomorrow it's at XX. So if it doesn't understand that AI is here to improve, that's a problem.
So empathy, that's why you're saying that with AI, you need to have empathy because
as
you're
well.
saying your empathetic journey is to make sure you onboard him into your journey.
Correct.
Because also AI can also make you ruthless.
Yes, and I gave you an example. I don't know, at lunch, you remember where I said we asked, we were acquiring another tech company, and then we ran all the algorithms, all the financial modeling into an AI. And it came up very aggressive, and it didn't realize there's more to actually the father who was selling his shares. He had a son who was interested in XYZ, and they had this. So AI did not pick that up because AI did not have the conversation with the father. So we did. So ideally, take those algorithms, take those findings with your empathy, combine it. Yeah, you get the best out of AI. Yeah.
Great. Perfect.
And for me, very succinctly, I would say for AI, the key question is an even better understanding of the business, of the customer, of the value chain of the business. So then I'm able to ask the right questions, because you'll be more successful with AI if you ask the right questions. You're looking for the right analysis. And I know AI essentially is just, you're just moving from your business analyst to someone who is here online, and your business analyst can then go to use even the AI so that you still ask the same questions. But now, instead of taking 1 week to give you the answer, it's taking 1 hour to give you the answer. So I feel that's the thing. And then on this overall area of where next and where do I want to really care most about, I talked about this thing of scaling up our businesses so that and ensuring that there is a way that they remain anchored in our own, in ownership of our own people, because we can't afford to give away what has taken out of people to build, because it's a lot more work building than maintaining. So we are building businesses, and just when we get to the point of maintaining them, then giving them away, we need to find a way in which, even if you're giving part of the business away, it needs to stay here with our people. And that's why I'm talking about, I think there's something we need to do about the capital markets, and especially the stock market, where then we can have more companies finding their way there. If you go to many countries that are reasonably developed, you have thousands of companies listed. We have so many companies in the last 20 years that should have found their way into a listed state, but they're either not there because they were bought by someone who then went and dissolved them into another bigger organization, and that person literally has skimmed out all the value that was done by people here and then taken it out, out of the country. So for me, I think that's the one education that our Kenyans and Kenyan entrepreneurs need, founders need, so that they start thinking about, how am I going to get my value that I built here and ensure this business remains. Even if you want your children to be involved in that business, there's a way you can structure it such that they remain. And we've seen examples of such business in the US, where you find a company, the family now owns 20%, but they still are significant in that because there are certain legal instruments you can use.
We will definitely be having that conversation in one of our other conversations in terms of second generation, third generation businesses, for sure. That's a topic that requires in itself to be unbundled. But I think I want to leave you with before you go to Wawira, I want to leave you with a challenge. You, okay, an entrepreneur. You sit in Strathmore Business School. I have no issue. I went to even a high school, so I have definitely significant level of interest on the name Strathmore, right? What will you do to change owner management program, advanced management program, to have more data-driven, AI-driven case studies to align to what Ali said? Wawira puts a problem. She almost can describe a business, whether it is in cognition or not in cognition. Students, and eventually have what we call a self-learning platform that is evolving. Whether you want to plug that platform into the stock market to understand, or the political news, so people can start seeing the connection between politics, stock market to industry, to what is the price of copper and the impact it has, price of copper that went up last week or for 30%. What impact is it having in our industries? Or are we going to be the last guys to see the impact of copper? Because later we're only going to know about it. So the challenge is, how will education evolve with AI? When I log in online, I'm always say free Harvard courses, free this, free this. So even Harvard is beginning to realize nobody's willing to pay $100,000 for this.
True.
Correct? So I want to leave you that one.
Yeah, good challenge.
Yeah, and then go back and be happy to then sit as entrepreneurs with Strathmore and say, hey, tell us, what is this business? You can't cookie cut for us like this, assuming this is the same story. Is that correct? We can't be cookie cut like this. We need to move forward. Is that correct? But you know, you have to wear also the community hat of education. Unfortunately, you came here. Unfortunately, had not even connected you in education that way. But it's good you came nevertheless.
Yeah.
So can I leave you that challenge?
Yeah, I'll try. You have to remember that I'm not full-time. Literally,
No.
it's almost my personal social responsibility. You know, when we say CSR, for me, I call it PSR. Personal social responsibility.
So you have agreed. You said you don't want to give up.
When the results are, when I can see we'll get the results, of course, it's.
So I'll be calling you. I'll hold you accountable until we make sure the universities get to, because that's how Africa is going to move forward.
And Strathmore is best suited.
To be honest,
Strathmore is best
suited. So if you
suited.
agree Strathmore is best suited, then you have to challenge them.
Happy to help.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He's there. He's happy. We're all happy to help.
Happy to plug in whatever you need.
Even me, for my case study, B and C, if you don't have somebody to write it, bring there. Let's create an AI agent to learn how to communicate. My balance sheet is there. My P&L is there. The story is there. Connect the P&L. Find out what was the currency. What was the exchange rate then? What was the killer information is there. It's about crawling the internet and getting the information and crunching data, no? So that time we used to have a guy, a case writer, having to study balance sheet. What is that? So now we just put balance sheets for 5 years. Show me progressively debt, liability, share capital, valuation. We'd have seen all this business, no?
Correct.
I'm challenging. That one you have to do.
Yeah.
Wawira, tumalizie hii kitu. I'm not putting any challenge on you. For you, I think we have to hit 1 million. That's your commitment. Is that the only challenge I want to put for you is when you want us to come and spend a day with you. But over to you. There is no AI, but when delay.
As soon as Monday.
Monday we'll do.
Question answered.
So we'll talk to your team. No, but now that one we have agreed.
Yes.
So I would like people I love your story. I love the skill. I love the impact you're making. It's not easy. I don't think it's easy. Hey, me, I don't even know I can do that job. Hey, kila siku. It's massive kitchens. I can imagine massive infrastructure, retail, distribution, whatever, delivery. But let's talk about AI. In your business, I don't know if there's an answer, but but I think it does, because if you have 5,000 employees, there must be auxiliary systems across the organization that AI will help you make decisions on. Is that correct? Over to you.
So I think, first of all, last year I attended TED in Vancouver, and the big topic was AI. So it was my first sort of real induction. You know, you hear the word and things like that, and then you learn that what people refer to AI a lot is actually ChatGPT or Gemini, but there are so many other tools that are there. There are a lot of speakers. Sam Altman was actually one of the speakers, and I learned a lot about what AI can do. And at Food for Education, it really opened my eyes to, you know, when we're talking about predictive analytics. So for example, at Food for Education in a school, we don't cook for the same number of kids every single day. So if it's 1,000 kids, we'll predict the next day based on the menu, based on the time of the month, based on the school population, there'll be 990. So it's lowered our wastage significantly. Our wastage is, you know, in the food industry, food wastage is a big problem. Ours is 2% and below because of that predictive analytics. We get a lot of data, as you can imagine, around parents. They're contributing daily, some are contributing monthly, and we use artificial intelligence to be able to predict in terms of like how do you reach out to parents, how do you make sure that they're involved within the program, and how do you keep that technology sort of very intuitive to what is happening. So you can imagine that data set is very, very rich. The other way is what you've said about the staff. So, for example, we have our HRIS, which is a HR information system. So we use AI tools to be able to disseminate knowledge, but also to, for example, to know our policies. You know, you don't have to go read the whole policy. You can easily upload the policies on an LLM and then ask the technology, how do you do a disciplinary process? So that's something we're looking to implement in our HRIS, which are tools that are used globally, right? So sometimes when you tap into tools that are used globally, like for example, Sage, if you tap as an ERP, if you tap into HiBob as a HRIS, those tools are innovating very quickly on AI. And so as a company, you're not having to create the agent yourself, but these companies are already creating that inherently, and you're paying a subscription anyway. So getting those tools is really, really important.
Fantastic.
So I think artificial intelligence is great. I don't think it's going to do everything. So for example, it's not going to cook the food in the kitchens, except although I did see robots at TED doing things that, folding clothes, cooking for, there was somebody who did a TED talk about a robot in his house and how it's now cooking for the kids and how it's doing stuff within the house, folding laundry. They're saying like very soon you'll be able to buy a robot to keep in your house to do those things for you. We're not
healthcare management, they said.
Yes, we're not looking at cooks, replacing our cooks with robots, but we're looking at how we can streamline our work, because also a bedrock of us, and I think that's where Africa has an advantage also, that I think the West may have huge reductions in jobs, for example, in more of the automative, repetitive type of work that robots and artificial intelligence can take up. But for example, for here, based on the cost of labor, it might still make sense for you to hire somebody in the house versus get a robot and pay a subscription to a global company. So I think we have a huge potential to use artificial intelligence, but we also shouldn't lose what makes us us, that human connection, that what you said, you're the chief context officer. Technology knows a lot, but it doesn't know everything. You still have to tell it like, think about this. No, this is not what I meant. And so as human beings, we really have to reimagine what our position is. But I think Africa has the right sort of ethos and the type of community that can integrate AI, but also make sure that it's not eroding what makes us human and what makes us really good at what we do.
Fantastic. I want to ask you an interesting question. When I look at Minnesota, okay?
Asking me?
Yes, I'm thinking. Okay. I look at the US. I'm not asking Ali.
Oh, you thought
Please. I'm asking. When I think about Minnesota and I think about what you're doing, Ali, let's think about it, to be honest. Objectively. Right, guys, please. When you think about Minnesota and you think about the Americans are saying they're losing billions, whichever formats they're losing.
Okay, I see.
I think I would see your business, your technology.
You can take it to Minnesota.
So you take it to the Americans. You could help them solve a lot of their chaos. Don't you think so? Because
just like
what are they doing?
Right at
daycare.
And tag
you have the
Donald
platform
Trump.
for daycare. Is that correct? You have a way to link daycare to, because daycare equals food, no?
Correct.
How does daycare work? What is daycare? Daycare is food and teachers, right?
School, basically, is food and teachers.
What is stopping you from white labeling or going to getting a partner to help you solve this American problem?
Nothing. I mean,
that's why I think now your Stanford story should now translate to taking that product into American market.
Yeah.
I think, one of the things that as Food for Education we've really focused on is solving the problem for Africa. So we started out in Kenya, and I think,
But the US is having an Africa problem.
Yes, they're having a problem that is global. Yes, and we also have global problems, and we can say that we always say at Food for Education we're an African solution to a global problem, because what they're having is something that happens in the US, happens here. How do you trace How do you have data? How do you ensure that the beneficiaries you're giving are actually the beneficiaries? And so for us, Africa already has 400 million children in schools. And so focusing on how we're now looking at scaling outside Kenya and looking at other countries on the continent. And eventually, maybe we'll get to solve Minnesota's issues, or
you should. It's a problem there
else.
waiting to be. It's knocking at your door.
But for now, I think our time is best spent trying to solve the problems here. Yeah.
But so you're saying if I come and tell you, oh, the governor of Minnesota or the governor of California or Chicago is looking for solutions, you'll tell me no, Masharia. Actually,
I would.
Let me go to Malawi.
I think mission drift is very, 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 very live for founders.
Okay.
So mission drift, where you say that someone in Minnesota has called me. I personally have never been to Minnesota. So why would I get on a plane, go and solve a problem there when I have so many issues to solve here?
Okay.
Valid. So it's not about the money, because you can make more money in Minnesota, but it's about the core of why you're doing it.
Yeah.
You want to do it in Africa. You want to solve a problem. There's more need in Africa for this than in Minnesota. They can continue having.
But again,
they can continue having to spend more money to do the same thing.
We are saying our solutions. We have to start looking at our solution as global solutions. So you don't have to go yourself. It is white labeling your platform to go there, and that's why we're in this show. Because there must be somebody in America, Kenyan, American, or whoever, watching this show. And he's thinking, what did she say?
And we encourage them to
solve
their own problems.
So what we'll do, definitely your information will be there online.
Yes.
So those ones who want to look for you and decide, oh, my friend, I want to come and study your system. And then now, you don't be scared to create global wealth. Is that correct? I want to thank all of you.
Thank you.
Starting now from with the ladies first. Wawira, thank you. Impressive what you're doing, and I told you to take. Now we're hitting almost 2.5, 3 hours. There's a lot we can talk about. Is that correct? You realize education is not a class.
True.
It is a journey. It's also a self journey. Is that correct? So I want to thank you for your onlineness and coming to this show. It's part of a journey, and I think this is the case studies we're talking about. Because in our case studies, in these 3 hours, there's a lot you're going to learn. And I'm not sure what case study. Here, there, one case study, 2 case study, 3, 4. You're talking about emotional, you're then jumping into family, then you're jumping. There's a lot. We are almost there, a case study. So in a different way, every episode is a case study.
Correct.
Times 4 in multiple dimensions. Is that correct? So I want to thank you for coming and your team. And then James, asante sana. Unaweza ongea sana. What you're thinking, the knowledge in your head is a lot. It just requires calm, amazing people around you. Itatoka kila kitu.
They were very amazing. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. Asante sana, James, for. I know we've been back and forth trying to do this. Now you've seen it's an afternoon. We'd have done many things. You'd have been playing tennis or whatever. Or across. You'd have been playing golf. You see, it's 3 hours given to a noble cause. Meeting new people you never knew. Is that correct?
There are people who will see me on this and they will really think, what's wrong? What has happened to him? So I don't know. I am holding my fingers crossed.
We have agreed that we told me Unlearned. Unlearned, there's no cheer.
No.
Remember, there's a stage, you are alone. What you've done is you're creating joy to other people.
True.
Like my life, you see.
There's a guy today you talked about who wrote you that message. He's going to watch this thing and realize. I'm sure you never told him one-to-one what you said. Maybe today is the day he's the last
Actually,
and he knows himself.
He knows himself.
He knows himself.
Mike and I think Wawira and you touched on it. I mean, we are groomed, or we are in school. You get certificates, diplomas, degrees. Those are validations. At work, you get promotions, appraisals. Those are validations. But as a founder, sometimes I went 21 months without any validation. The only validation that I got from an investor was your product lacks depth and it's not scalable. And you wonder, you go back and think. So when you talk about unlearning things, this validation thing, it's actually out of my. If I want to drive a Mini or a Probox, it's okay. If I want to drive a G-Wagon, it's okay.
It's a decision.
If I want to wear slippers, t-shirt, that's okay. you know, that urge, hunger to seek validation is no longer there.
But also leadership. Leadership is also, as you especially, as you become and have more responsibility, that even becomes even more imparable. Think about it. In terms of self-validation, you realize you don't have to, because you should be, at some point, if you really want, if you have power, and self-validation becomes an area where it becomes dangerous to work on. So you also need to manage that balance between power, capital, and self-validation, I would assume so, right? Ali, hiyo imekuwa ya mwisho.
Thank you.
Asante sana.
I
It was
enjoyed
really
I enjoyed
great to talk to you.
It's therapy, by the way.
It's therapy.
I'm sitting here thinking like, oh my God, I should have done this long time ago.
I know everybody feels like that. When I talk to them, they always say, I wish. These guys are good gentlemen and ladies. Every time we see it, that's the usual story, correct? I wish. Everybody says, I wish. Is that correct? I want to thank you again for coming, and God bless you, and Allah bless you. And we move on. Today I've learned a lot also how religion connects to entrepreneurship. So I want to thank you, and also thank the audience. This has been an interesting conversation. I'm not even sure we're going to cut anything. There's nothing to cut. So it's going to be 3 hours of watching, 3 hours of connecting. Definitely, those who have the bandwidth can watch the 3 hours. Those ones who want to catch up on TV47 can then catch it up in bits and pieces. We are moving on to exciting stuff in the coming weeks. I think by the time this show goes live, we'll have a ticketing event that allows 500 entrepreneurs to come. Because people have been asking me, you seem to have all these bespoke, small communities of people. So we're opening it up for tickets. You buy the tickets. We're going to be having an event every mid-month, 500 people. And we're hoping to capture like 10,000 online. And at the end of the year, we hope to have a 15,000 concert for entrepreneurs. So this is part of us building that momentum together. Because it's through this conversation, you've seen Ali, James, Wawira come here. Imagine meeting other entrepreneurs, socially, connecting beyond, you just met today, but 6 months later, you still have a question. I can guarantee you guys, in 6 months, mtakuwa mkiongea. In 1 year, you're going to be saying, I think Ali said something, Wawira said something, James said something, on my cars, I need to get into solve it, I need to do all that stuff. So you realize there's a connection. And I think we need to make this connection at a global level and also at a country level, because together we can make that change that we need to make. Asanteni, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.